Oh, well. Once again, we made it through yet another capitalist weekend. I must admit, I'm very tired. This was a tough weekend, this one. Busy across the board. I like the place I work. The place that I'm working, they're good people, doing good work, working in a good business. They take good care of me, so I can't complain, but boy howdy, do I not like capitalism. Boy howdy. So, starting off today's sleepy ass stream. Hey Major, how you doing, bud? In my eyes, indisposed, in disguises no one knows, hides the face, lies the snake, the sun in my disgrace. Boiling heat, summer stench, 'neath the black the sky looks dead. Call my name through the cream and I'll hear you scream again. Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come, won't you come? Stuttering, cold and damp, steal the warm wind, tired friend. Times are gone for honest men, sometimes far too long for snakes in my shoes. A walk in sleep, in my youth I pray to keep heaven sent hell away. No one sings like you anymore. Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come? Black old sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Black old sun, won't you come, won't you come? Won't you come? Oh, won't you come? Oh. Hey Bumble Guppy, how you doing? A happy bread day to you as well. Uter Vaughn, I don't know if I know you, bud. Good to see you. Good to see you. All the same, glad you're here. All right, guys, you know how this goes. Let's just get into the number pick. What do you think? Just so you guys know, before I get into the number pick, for you, Uter, it's you pick a number between 1 and 10 in the chat here, and David Lynch will pull a ball out of a jar. Just so you guys are aware, I've got someone coming by my place tomorrow with some actual equipment, and I'm going to be recording some of my songs. Going to prioritize 2020 and Antarctica as the songs that I'm going to be playing, and once I get those up onto a website called Bandcamp, where I've got my account going on, for the people who are at the $5 level or better Patreons, I'll make that available to you, or you can feel free to purchase it off of Bandcamp, and I'll get those links and everything ready for you. So that's an exciting thing that's coming down the pipe for those of you who have been requesting some of my songs. Okay, so we got a 6, we got a 7, we got an 8. I feel like for consistency's sake, I got to pick a 5.
Here we go for today's number.
Right? How you doing, Nova Scotia? Good to see you, bud.
2021. 10 balls.
There we go, 10 balls, right?
Each ball has a number.
Got a 9 from DM. Good to see you, DM. Congrats on the recording. Good job, man. Hey, it's good fortune. Good fortune.
Swirl
the numbers. I could use some good fortune right now. We've got a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've taken up like half the thing. One of us has got to hit. Come on, Mr. Lynch. It's probably going to be the 6.
Today's number is 9.
We got a 9. DM. Ding, 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 ding. What'd I tell you, DM? You win all the time, bud. You're a winner. Uter Vaughn, we might be related. Oh, goodness. I figured I'd just stop in and say hi. I haven't seen you for years. What's, if you're comfortable, like, what's the relation? Who's your mom? Like, I don't know who you are, dude. Uter Vaughn? It's no hints. Trevor? Oh, from Winnipeg? Brian's boy? Is that right? Wow, Trevor, I haven't talked to you since we were teenagers, bud. Holy shit. That's been, God, 15 years. 15 years probably, bud. Holy cow. What are you up to these days, man? You're still in Manitoba, I wager. Yeah, when one wins, we all win. Exactly, Major. Exactly. How perfect. How perfect. Jeez, Trevor, man. I feel like the last time I talked to you, you were still living. You were just you were still living with Beth and Brian in that big old mansion that they got there. I mean, maybe you were 17 or something. Jeez Louise, man. And now we're both like in our mid-30s. I'm going to be 40 soon. Holy cow. I bet you're kicking ass out there in Manitoba, dude. I'll message you my number so I don't wreck your live stream. Oh, bud, you can't wreck. If I can't wreck this live stream, you can't wreck this live stream, bud. Please do, though. That's very sweet. Good to see you, Trevor. I hope you have a good time while you're here. And you're gonna see how crazy and kooky I can get, bud, pretty quickly. Good. How'd you find the stream, bud? How'd you even know about it? Breaking news. Del Duca promises to resume the basic income project if elected. DM, dude, like, but doesn't that just tell you how, like, low-hanging fruit that was? Like, Del Duca can come out and promise to resume the basic income project, right? Well, where's Andrea Horwath, man? Where's Andrea Horwath? Like, come on. Like, come on. These are the types of promises that Andrea Horwath should be making. And honestly, that's an easy promise to make. If the Liberals can kick that project off, the NDP can, right? It just goes to show you, and I've been saying this all along about Del Duca, he is better at this game. He is better at the propaganda. He is better at the politicking, right? He is better at it than Andrea Horwath is. It drives me crazy. It just is nuts. Your dad, so Brian found out about it. Brian probably found out about it from my dad is what happened. Yeah, so my dad tells your dad, tells you, and suddenly now here you are. Look at that. Well, brilliant, bud, brilliant. I'm so glad that you're here. Just give me the phone number in Boolean. What? Good to see you, Kevin. No point to give me your number now. It's already been drawn. Yeah, good point. Oh, no, none of that. Yeah. We'll make it happen, bud. Oh, man. Del Duca wants to resume policies that Kathleen... Yeah, of course he does. Like, of course he does, right? But there are policies that are popular, right? Like, the Basic Income Pilot Project was, like, one of the 2, if maybe 3 things that Kathleen Wynne did that were of any worth, right? Kathleen Wynne was also responsible for upping the minimum wage once she felt that it might actually win her another term, which it didn't because... You know, we kind of... Kathleen Wynne and McGuinty's privatization of Hydro One is really what did her in, right? Like, we should not be privatizing public utilities. Straight up. Like, it's annoying that it's not said explicitly or said more openly, more often. Like, yeah, if you privatize public infrastructure, we're going to want to get rid of you. We were so desperate to get rid of these guys that we went ahead and voted in, like... a rapacious sociopath that is actively attempting to make life worse for the elderly so he can make money. Ugh. Has destroyed some Canadian conservative. It's easy to destroy Canadian conservatives, dude. Like, it's easy to destroy Canadian conservatives these days. They don't really have, like, credibility, I think is the word. I've been using the word credibility a lot this last week and over this weekend. And to me, that's really what this is all about. Like, I mean, a guy like me should have no credibility in this conversation whatsoever, right? Straight up. Let's be really honest. Hey, Misty, good to see you. A guy like me should never have any credibility whatsoever. And the only reason I have credibility in this conversation is because I am stating what is obviously true, while the rest of this culture and the rest of this apparatus seems to want to do anything but, right? That we're all standing around the truth, but I'm looking at it while they're looking away from it. And like a place like the National Post or the Globe and Mail or these sorts of things, they've just lost credibility, right? And so, like, what's happening? We've got YouTube people who are just like on fucking YouTube, gaining more traction and gaining more credibility than these media outlets because they've completely lost credibility. They're done, right? And people are now to the point where those media outlets can't get that credibility back. How could they? How can they get their credibility back? And so a guy like me is just going to take off to the moon because these assholes just left the door open. Like, and all you had to do is tell the truth and be credible. Here I am. Yeah, I agree with you, Duke. Good to see you, bud. Del Duca has zero credibility. For sure. Like, what credibility does this guy have? Why would anyone actually vote? Especially considering that, like, the Wynne government is what left the door open for the Ford government. Like, no. Like, why do a redo? You know? It seems to me that, like, going for Horvath simply out of doing something different. Just trying something new, for God's sakes. People on Reddit are extremely nervous about CRB support will not be extended due to the fact that Parliament won't resume session until late November. Yeah, that's their strategy, right? They don't want to actually face it. They're cowards. A guy like Justin Trudeau who's walking around saying, like, left-wingers have white supremacist groups, although he can't tell us which groups, right? The best I've seen the mainstream media say of that, well, that was an irresponsible thing to say. It's not irresponsible. It's a tactic. It's something that the powerful are doing in order to very specifically besmirch the left wing and to pretend as though communists and fascists are the same. That's the end game of this, right? The reason why Justin Trudeau is walking around saying, oh, well, there are extremists on the left and the right, and they're both supporting white supremacy and all this is to perpetuate this lie into the populace that fascists and communists are the same when they're not even close. I mean, for God's sakes, for the vast majority of the existence of communism, they've been fighting against the fascists directly, including World War fucking II, right? One of the largest wars in modern history. Right? Kicked off like a new era. and who were the primary forces that were fighting that? Oh, it was the communists and the fascists. Like, and now we're supposed to stand here and take seriously some fucking walking haircut like Justin Trudeau while he says he tries to claim that these two forces are the same. Get fucking bent, dude. I can't imagine why Justin Trudeau didn't get his majority. I can't imagine why Justin Trudeau didn't get his majority, you guys. It doesn't make any sense. Why do we think Justin Trudeau didn't get his fucking majority? Probably because he's just a goddamn walking haircut, right? And he's just laying the groundwork, right? He knows that there's some major things about to happen, right? Like, he goes to these meetings, he talks to these capitalists, he's aware there's some major collapses and some major, or what they'll call shifts, right? There's some major things coming down the pipe, which is why he wanted his majority. He wanted to face these coming collapses in a Majorian position. He doesn't want to negotiate with the workers, right? Which is what the NDP is. He doesn't want to negotiate with those guys. He doesn't want to have to deal with them. He doesn't want them in the conversation at all. He wanted the middle managers, which is the Liberal Party. He wanted the middle managers to be the ones responsible for the decision making. And they didn't get it because he's just a fucking walking haircut. Yeah, exactly. There's no difference between good and bad things, right? Facts and nuance. That sounds like bullshit to me. They will do anything to delay or prevent a UBI, which is what a lot of people want to transition the CERB to. Yeah, I said that from day one, dude. Like, the CERB is a basic income, and it should be transitioned into a basic income. And the idea that we can't do that, and you're seeing the consequences of not doing it in the United States, right? There are states that outright removed these sorts of support systems, right? And what happened? Oh, people didn't run off to go get their slave jobs, right? Homelessness spiked, right? Like, these dumbass moronic capitalists, and at this point it is just dumbassery. Like, it's just stupid. They don't know or understand their own system. Like, oh, I've jacked rents way off the roof, and the wage that I'm willing to pay isn't actually going to pay the rent. I wonder where my workers are, right? And especially in America, the people who have already been through this system have already moved. They've already left. They're already gone, right? Why can't I find workers? Because no one can afford to live in the area, dude. No one can afford to live in the area. Like, there's a reason there's 600,000 homeless people in the United States. There's a reason there's a major crisis going on. There's a reason. And even if you cut off those supports, it's not suddenly going to drive people back into the workforce and into these jobs. And how do we know that? Because the United States tried exactly that and it failed, right? People are rebelling. This is a rebellion. People are not interested in working for this capitalist system anymore. Full stop. There's no further explanation given or needed. People do not want to work for the shitty wages and the shitty jobs so that they can get shit on by people who treat them like garbage and then call them lazy, right? Like, sorry that the last 20 years of abuse has culminated in a full-scale rebellion. Sorry that the last 20 years of getting shit on by assholes who don't care about us has actually culminated in action. Sorry, maybe be human beings next time. Maybe actually treat people with respect and dignity. Maybe instead of chasing a worthless profit motive that literally just allows Jeff Bezos to shoot a rocket into space and then get on a yacht and park his yacht in a yacht, right? Like, I told someone today, this is a real thing that Jeff Bezos has. Jeff Bezos has a yacht that he lands a helicopter on, and then he takes that yacht and he goes and he parks it in a bigger yacht, right? This is a real thing that they actually have. It's fucking ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. And people are starting to put together more and more like, Jeff Bezos has a yacht to park his yacht in, and I literally cannot pay rent working a 40-hour a week job. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good. Actually, there are 2.5 million homeless children in the USA alone. Holy shit, Kevin. Holy shit. The only counter argument to CRB and UBI is get a job. It's literally all they keep parroting over and over. Yeah, because it's the last slogan they have, right? It's the last of the slogans that they have. And it makes a type of sense as long as you completely capitulate that, as long as you believe that the system is working whatsoever, right? If you are on the side believing that this system has any credibility whatsoever, right? You can stand there and say, just get a job. But if you understand that the system is bereft of credibility, that even the good jobs are actually leading to self-immolation, right? Once you put climate change into the conversation, right? Even the good jobs are leading to self-immolation. There's no such thing as working for your own benefit in this society. Period. It doesn't exist. The best that you can do is maybe get a job or get something that will alleviate your personal suffering by a tiny, 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 infinitesimally small amount for a moment. For just like a fleeting little tiny moment. This whole system has lost credibility. And the people walking around saying, just get a job, are not much different than people saying, the earth is flat, COVID doesn't exist, Jesus is coming back, right? Just get a job. As far as I'm concerned, these are the same ideas and the same slogans uttered by the same simple-minded idiots, right? The system of capital has failed. It will continue to fail. It will continue to get worse. I mean, for God's sakes, like it couldn't be easier. Like it couldn't be easier to see that this is the case. And in the quote-unquote social democracies that exist across the world, it is possible that we may transition into something resembling socialism or something resembling a more egalitarian society. But in the United States, that conversation is over. Like, we are looking at a full-scale civil war at this point. And that is what I am going to be reporting on. And that's what I intend to analyze the world and the society as. These strike actions are part of that. Right? There's enormous strike actions going throughout the United States right now. There's enormous rebellion, the Great Resignation, as it's so called. It is only a matter of time until these disenfranchised groups, especially the mega cult, starts to pick up guns and show up at places. It's already happened a couple of times, right? We all remember Kevin Rittenhouse, right? Brought a gun to a protest and shot and murdered 2 people in the streets. How much longer before the Antifa crowd brings guns back? Right? How much longer until everyone is armed at these things? How much longer until there's open shooting in the streets? Like, it's coming our way. When you've got the mega cult has said that 55% of them want to have a civil war, and Biden supporters, 45% of them want a civil war. So it's in the cards. It's coming our way, right? And if the social democracies that exist, such as they exist, were smart, they would be doing everything they could to move away from the capitalist model, the American model especially, right? The swifter they do so, the better it will be for their citizens. Because at this stage in the game, the United States is going to devolve itself into a civil war. And only after that civil war has finished, will there be any attempt to rebuild maybe a civil society. Assuming it's not the mega cult that wins that shooting war, by the way, right? And there's no guarantee that that will be the case. Let's see what you guys are chatting about. Maybe the capitalists should have considered why Karl Marx, that capitalism would fail, and do some research. Yeah, they don't even read their own critics, right? Like, I've said it over and over on this channel, and you guys know, like the Richard Wolff, right, gets his PhD from Princeton, I think. It's either Princeton or Harvard, but one of the big ones, right? Maybe even Yale. Oh my God, I'm so well read, guys. I promise. Richard Wolff said that he got his PhD and they never once told him to read Marx, right? Like, so you get a PhD in economics and you don't read Marx. Like, you're not an economist if you're graduating in the United States. Period. You've been indoctrinated into the capitalist death cult. The neoliberal ideology, the religious ideology of trickle-down economics. I'm tired of the capitalist bumper sticker. Pick up your bootstraps, get a job. Most of us don't have boots to begin with. This is maddening. Well, and it's also like, it's odd how often it happens that right-wingers will take the criticisms against them and then just adopt them. The pick up your bootstraps line was said as a joke, as a way to make fun of these guys. Like, you literally can't do it. It's not possible to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, it's literally not possible. And so these guys are like walking around saying out loud in front of each other and the world, do impossible acts, and that's how things work. Like, and then they accuse us of being utopian because we want to do a system that already exists. Like, that's what's so embarrassing about these guys. They're literally walking around saying, "Oh, you want to extend the childcare benefit that's already existed into the populace? How utopian! You better do that impossible thing and move forward and get a thing in a place that doesn't exist, right? Jesus is coming back at any moment." Okay, okay, bud, okay. That's where we're at. This is where we're at. Yeah, the origin of the bootstraps was parody, decrying the very people that use the phrase now. Exactly what I was saying, bud. Look at us, you and me, Bumbleguppy. Right on the same there will either be a civil war, or if American people are sufficiently pacified, it will merely be a transition to open feudalism. No, there's going to be a shooting war first, dude. There's going to be a shooting war first, and it's being the death cult wants it. I think that's what it really comes down to, is that the death cult is interested in a civil war. That if the populace is busy fighting amongst itself, if the populace is busy shooting at each other, then they're not taking up arms against the people that they should, right? If the Democrats and the Republicans are in the streets shooting at each other, then they're not organizing in order to take the capitalist death cult down. So they're doing the classic thing. They're selling weapons to both sides. They're fomenting discontent on both sides, right? And in the end, it's going to be both groups that clash in the streets, and it's going to be brutal. It's going to be explosive. There's going to be lots of people that die over it. Some cities are going to go straight mega cult. Like, you wait for it. Some cities are just going to end up being straight up mega cult. And there's no way to stop it at this point. Like, the only thing that could possibly stand in the way of this outcome is if some kind of cultural icon were to arise from the people and pacify both the mega death cult as well as the vote blue no matter who crowd, and manage to pacify them and unify them together. That's the only thing that could actually happen. And that you're talking about like a figure that would be so powerful and renowned that it would rival someone like Gandhi, right? Or Jesus Christ himself. You're talking about a cultural icon that would become like the national hero of the society from now and then in perpetuity. I'm not saying it's not possible for such a person to arise. I'm just saying it's extremely unlikely. Yeah, get a job, translate. If I have to be a slave, you should too. There's also that, Matthias. Like, how about straight up, like, maybe work less? Like, maybe do less. Like, maybe do less. Like, why are you glorifying your own slavery? Why are you glorifying your wage slavery? That's really the case. That there is a group of people who are so, like, that back when they were a teenager, right? Back when they were in their early 20s even, they just came to terms with the reality that they were a wage slave, and they've just learned how to love it. And the possibility that they might not be a wage slave has been, as a defense mechanism, obliterated from their thoughts. That they are no longer interested in resistance, because they've given up hope on the idea that resistance is possible. So they literally can't imagine a different way to live because they've given up on it. It's already dead to them. And so if you're complaining about it, well, you just need to get with the program, bud. You just need to get with the program, as far as they're concerned. Like, and they really will not change their tune. Like, they will be abandoned by the death cult. They will be thrown out onto the streets. They will have their businesses shut down. They will lose their jobs. And all they will think the entire time is just got to hustle harder. Just got to hustle harder, right? And then when I die, I'll go to heaven and meet Jesus Christ, right? As a U.S. citizen, I just want you Canadians to take care of yourselves. It's too late for us here. I mean, it's funny because Harper saw all this coming, right? Harper, between Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau, the true visionary actually ended up being Stephen Harper. Like, he was taking a look at the United States and being like, oh yeah, okay, there's a decline happening. We cannot stay attached to America. We literally cannot do it. A big reason why Justin Trudeau is quote unquote soft on China, right? Of course he wants to be trading with China. Like, China is stable. Of course he wants to be involved in China. Like, the United States is collapsing. And the idea that you're gonna, like, what? Put yourself out there for America? Yeah, right. So yeah, be soft on China because, you know, hey, if you alienate both China and the it doesn't matter if you alienate the United States at this point, right? You could be the best buddy in the world to the United States. Like, the psychopaths have taken over. They don't view anyone as friends. Every alliance is an alliance of convenience. And under those circumstances, if Canada starts alienating China, then they have no friends, right? So it's better to be acquaintances with a stable trading partner than to be really good friends with a fucking psychopath. Yeah, let them eat cake. I mean, how many let them eat cake moments do we need? It's just getting ridiculous. Hope these disenfranchised groups leak into Canada and block the 401 highways. Wouldn't it be something? I'd gladly support them. Man, that'd be a real moment, honestly. I'm going to be a conscientious objector to the Civil War personally. Yeah, I mean, as best as we can. It's going to be Biden's crowd that gets violent. Well, for now, it's going to be Biden's police. Yeah, that's a more accurate way of looking at it, I think. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Like, what's so funny is that people, it seems to me that lots of people seem to think that the Biden crowd are like a bunch of peaceniks, and it's like, no. Like, the blue MAGA cult is just as bad as the MAGA cult, right? That they both, like, Russiagate was ridiculous. Russiagate was probably one of the most ridiculous, like, you got to be completely out of touch with reality to actually take a look at Russiagate and think, oh yeah, this is a serious, credible event that actually happened. This is the reason Hillary Clinton lost. Clearly she wasn't rejected because her fucking whole career has been ridiculous war crimes and the betrayal of the working class. Like, clearly she wasn't rejected for legitimate reasons. It must be bigotry. It must be Russia, right? Like, as long as you say this kind of stuff, then you don't actually need to, like, self-analyze or pay any attention to what is actually going on in the world. That the people who are voting for Biden and the Democrats at this point, in seriousness, like, without any irony whatsoever, like, these people are just as mega cultish as MAGA is. It's just that the MAGA cult is so, like, ostentatious about their absurdity, right? They're so much like, they're the, like, wearing the American flag cape, holding the gun, being like, America, shooting into the sky, chanting USA over and over again. While, like, the Biden people are, like, kind of the snooty snoots who, like, read newspapers and wear suits and all this kind of stuff, but they're just as fucking clueless, and they're just as fucking radical, and they're just as fucking violent. So it's going to be brutal. Heather Heyer, I know I might have known her. That's what I thought I might. I like the way this guy's been completing my thoughts and filling in the spaces. Oh yeah. Do you know about the NFAC? I do not, Major. The worst is so many people could just get away with working a little bit less and make that much less and still be fine with their lifestyle mostly intact. Yeah. Hey, Ruth, how you doing? Well, yeah, I mean, people right now are just living in a dream world, right? Like, and that's something I actually think is, and I'm not trying to say that to be dismissive, right? That we were sold what is called the American dream, right? And the American dream was realized by many people, but, like, what a lot of art surrounding this idea of the American dream really showed is that even in the attainment of the dream, the people within it were miserable, right? Because life was still about this pursuit for material gain. It was about, like, these fleeting, abstract, like, the idea that once you had a house and the kids and the wife and all this, that you were a king and all this. It all is total bullshit, right? It makes me think about Married with Children. Married with Children was a massive critique of the capitalist structure, because here's a guy who is working as a retail shoe store salesman. He's not even in management, right? And he's attained the American dream with this minimum wage job, and he's miserable. He hates his family, right? He shits on them as often as he can. They shit on him, right? Everybody's just spitting fire back and forth and all of this. And what is it that he actually dreams of when he sets to his mind? He falls back to that moment when he was a teenager, right? Scoring touchdowns. So he's like living in this like dream world while the American dream is manifest towards him, and he's miserable about it, right? And this loss of this dream, the fact that people are not going to attain it, and they know they're not going to attain it, is leading to a lot of anger. And that anger is rooted very deeply in the deception that was wrought upon them by the capitalist structure, right? And because people don't know what's going on and they don't know who to trust, and there's a lot of ridiculousness going on, people are going to start shooting about it, right? They're just going to start shooting about it. People can't understand how the ruling class could be so heartless and cruel because they believe the ruling class are like them. But they're psychopaths, of course. Of course you don't understand them. Yeah, build a wall, exactly, Ruth. Hey, Alex, how you doing? I love you too, bud. I think you're onto something here, Bumble Guppy. Like, people still want to give the ruling class the benefit of the doubt, right? They still want to say of the ruling class, like, oh, they're in a tough position and there's like decisions to be made and maybe they, forgot about something, or maybe they do not want to admit that we are being purposefully abandoned, right? Like, for God's sakes, Amazon's stated policy towards its workforce is to burn people out. That's their stated agenda, is to get people in, work them to exhaustion, and then fire them. That's how they've organized their business. That's their business model, right? That's not done on accident. That's not done just, so many decisions, it's just an oversight and all that kind of stuff. They actively make the choice. They actively have made the choice in order to deconstruct the society and to assault the workers, right? When workers are pissing in bottles, the wealthy smile and laugh about it. And I genuinely think that, like, that is what it is going to take. People don't really understand that the wealthy are not sympathetic, right? That the goal is to spread suffering. That's the goal. And people don't really want to admit that, right? Because if they admit that, then they have to acknowledge that they are actually in a fight and that there are sides to that fight, right? People still want to think, they're like, no, we're all in this together and we're just sorting it out, and sure, mistakes are made or policies, and we'll just talk about it and vote somebody in, and then that person will see the reasonable light of day, and we'll all just move together and steadily improve over time, and life is complex, John, and there's all these difficult sort of things, but what's important is that we all unify and so on and so forth and blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, the people that they actively want to unify with are like Voldemort, right? Like Darth Vader. Like, you're not going to unify with these guys, right? These guys don't want unification, they want domination. That's what they're seeking. They're seeking domination. They want to hurt you. They want to exploit you. They want to destroy you. And moreover, they want to destroy the planet. That is their goal. Their goal is to, through ecocide, destroy the planet, because their narcissism and their arrogance refuses to allow them to accept that the planet has the right to kill them. And so they're going to try to kill it back. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. Yeah, human-centered capitalism. I see this a lot, right? This comes out of, I know that there are wealthy capitalists within the basic income conversation. And they really, they're using the phrase human-centered capitalism as a way to sell it to other capitalists. But it's a paradox. It doesn't make any sense. There's no such thing as human-centered capitalism. The only thing that capitalism cares about is profit. That is it. Full-scale stop. It doesn't care about humans. If it has to enslave and destroy humans in order to get profits, it will. Right? It will. Yeah, and profit doesn't care about humans. Humans are just a means to an end. That if the capitalists could create a system that spat out profits, without benefiting humans whatsoever or even involving them, it would, right? It would, because it doesn't care. And it's not even interested in creating systems that help anybody, right? It's just interested in money for itself and profit for the sake of profit. So and it doesn't matter if you destroy entire forests, if you destroy entire cities, if you destroy everything, as long as numbers go up in bank account, equal good. That's it. That's the capitalist system in a nutshell. And its defenders are odd at this point. It's odd to defend capitalism at this point. It'd be like defending Hitler. I just don't see how you can reasonably believe you're a credible person. I can live with China or bust foreign policy. Chinese culture is pretty neat, and Mandarin has been fun to learn. Are you trying to learn Mandarin, dude? That's tough. Mandarin's a tough one to learn, eh? It's very tonal language. And you know, they're on the other side of the planet, right? Capitalism destroys the people on the planet by design. Exactly. Production happens for profits, not to meet ends, not meet needs. Yeah, exactly. Good to see you, Grinning. Good to see you. Humans are another commodity, for sure. For sure. I mean, that's why Stephen Harper called us old stock, right? Like we're just seen as like stock for them to exploit. That's it. Like we're just numbers on a graph. Like we don't have any humanity. We don't have any desires or wishes or dreams that exist outside of the capitalist system. The only thing that exists in capitalism is profit. And funnily enough, I've been is this it right here? That'd be so funny if I had it ready. Yeah. I actually watched the complete rules of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. I highly recommend this, by the way, because there's some really, really interesting statements that were made. And the one I found that was really profound is a wealthy man can buy anything except a conscience. Canada has a huge Chinese diaspora community anyways, making the interpersonal and cultural connections are not hard. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Oh, big communities in the major cities for sure. And what's really great about what Canada's done is they've even they create bylaws in those communities to allow their signage to be in Chinese and Mandarin. So it's, yeah, that would be really useful. You could really immerse yourself if you wanted to, yeah. Yeah, there's no homelessness in Cuba, and they live longer than Americans on a far smaller GDP. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and GDP is a terrible metric. It's a terrible metric to use. It doesn't, it's been so long since I've read about GDP because I stopped once I saw how dumb it is to use as an economic metric. Like, one of the best metrics to use is caloric intake, right? Like if you're actually genuinely interested in the well-being of your society, caloric intake is almost number one, right? Especially if you're going from a society that's experienced massive poverty, where like you have skeletal starvation and this kind of shit. Going from that to something else. I mean, the thing to really pay attention is caloric intake, right? I learned sign language years ago, and immersion with native speakers is so important. For sure it is. For sure it is, yeah. My sister also learned sign language. She was working with a deaf woman, and she just found it unacceptable and intolerable that she couldn't speak with this woman. So she's just like, I'm going to learn sign language so I can speak with this woman that I work with. So one of the most beautiful things that she ever did. Cubans eat 3,400 calories per day. Yeah, Americans 39. Exactly. Like, and that's not like. So if the Cubans are eating like ever so slightly than the Americans, what's the issue? Like, how can we even call them a poor country, really? Yeah, there's declassified CIA docs showing USSR had better caloric intake than Americans. Yeah, and a lot of the Americans' diet is bullshit. Like, they put filler nonsense, like corn syrup and shit. Why do you think there's an obesity crisis? Right? Because their food is shit. It's literally just garbage. Yeah, one of my partners is Japanese, so I can practice with her. There you go. It makes it nice and easy. All right, let's move on to the day's news. I don't really actually have that much prepared today because I had a busy day today, and of course the capitalist weekend. I want to point this out though because I think there's truth to this, right? We take care of our employees but can't find any because people want to stay on unemployment. I'm a nice guy, but I'm single because girls just want to date assholes. They're the same picture. People are really pointing out that, like, what's happening in the conversation with, like, oh, employees don't want to work anymore because they're on unemployment has real, like, girls don't want to date nice guys vibes, right? That, like, they're just deflecting their experience onto the other instead of actually looking at themselves and asking, like, maybe I'm an asshole, right? Maybe I'm doing something to actually cause the situation to be much worse than it actually is. I tried to date a deaf studies major in college, so I learned a little ASL in the hopes of, yeah, exactly, Grinning. Yeah, as respectable a reason as ever to learn sign language, I must say. You guys know me. I love expressions of, like, high spirituality, and this is actually one of the best I've seen in a long time. Comes from Crypto Nature. The universe is an ongoing explosion. That's where you live. In an explosion. Also, we absolutely don't know what living is. Sometimes atoms arranged in a certain way just get very haunted. That's us. When an explosion explodes hard enough, dust wakes up and thinks about itself, and then writes about it. Yeah, I really like this. I'm going to hang on to that. I like this statement of, when an explosion explodes hard enough, dust wakes up and thinks about itself. Hi. That's us, sentient dust. Better go to work, right? Like, gotta get to McDonald's and flip those fucking burgers, right? Like, that's the thing that's so fucking goddamn annoying about the whole thing. Like, we are, like, these quantum beings that we're just, like, walking around. We were randomly generated. We don't know anything about anything. And we're not even that interested in figuring it out. And instead of spending any amount of time investigating the world that we're in and enjoying each other's presences and enjoying the world that we live in, no, we're going to go make fucking lattes and stupid shit so people can be like, tasty drink for 30 seconds and then fucking throw it in the garbage bin and forget all about it, right? Like, how about no? Like, how about fucking no? How about we all just chill out? How about we take this all down a notch, right? How about we stop racing around in total desperation? That's a good idea, bud. That's a good idea. How about we stop racing around in total desperation and we actually start, like, living a life, right? Figuring out what this place is. Thinking about it, right? Talking to one another. Learning what is going on with one another. Learning what's going on with our culture. Giving us room to build a culture. How about that? How about building? How about we actually get together and build a culture? Because this isn't a culture. Like, this is a pretend culture. This is what someone would make as a parody of a culture, right? I've been taking an Eastern religions course. It's super interesting. Also a huge time sink. Well, there's so much. Like, there's so much. The Eastern religions are so much more robust and have been around way longer than the Judaic, the Christian religions, right? Like the Judaism and Christianity, like, and in all honesty, these religions are, like, pretty rudimentary, right? Like, pretty low level, if you ask me. Like, compared them to, like, what is coming out of Hinduism even, or, like, Buddhism, like, it, and part of that is because they haven't really had the same amount of time, that they haven't been around for the same amount of time span. But also it's because, like, Christianity has largely been a tool of the powerful in order to exert themselves. Recently I saw the Pope coming out. Yeah, here you go. Here's a series of tweets given by the Pope The telecommunications giants to liberalize access to educational material and exchange with teachers via the internet so that poor children can be educated even under quarantine. Technology giants to stop preying on human weakness, people's vulnerability in order to make a profit. Arms manufacturers and dealers to totally cease their activity that foments violence and war, often in the context of geopolitical games that cost millions of lives and displaces many people. The big food corporations to stop imposing monopolistic production and distribution structures that inflate prices and end up withholding bread from the hungry. This is the fucking Pope. The large mining, oil, forestry, real estate, agribusiness companies to stop destroying nature, to stop polluting, to stop intoxicating people and food. Financial groups and international credit institutions to guarantee poor countries the basic needs of their people and to waive these debts so often contracted against the interests of those same peoples. The big laboratories to liberalize patents and to carry out a gesture of humanity and allow every human being access to the vaccine. Right? Like, basic shit finally coming out of the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church realizing it's fading into irrelevance, that as we move into this next era, and like, you've got to be a complete dunder to not be desperately afraid of the rising fascism that you're seeing in the United States. Like, if I saw anything other than this kind of stuff coming out of the Catholic Church, I'd just be like, yeah, because they're working with the fascists, right? But I mean, the rubber's on the road. Like, we're doesn't the Vatican have billions of dollars? What are they doing? Yeah, exactly, Ninetails. I agree with this line of reasoning, and more importantly, I think that this Pope exists to put the smiling, happy face on the Catholic Church. That the Catholic Church is just like any other business, right? They're one of the largest landowners in the world, if not the largest landowner in the world. Like, the Pope is essentially just a CEO at this point. And the idea that he's coming out with these sort of statements just tells you that they're trying to stay on brand with their statements, right? That, well, I guess it is the job of the Catholic Church to actually talk about wealth redistribution, you know, the things that Christ talked about. But like, so it's the Catholic Church just attempting to maintain credibility that they don't have any longer. But at least they're getting on side. Like, at least they're looking at the situation and being like, oh yeah, this place sucks. Like, we could do way, way better than this. But like at this stage in the game, like, nobody's going to do this shit. Oh, so the Pope said it. Who gives a fuck? Right? Not the psychopaths that run this place. They don't give a fuck what the Pope thinks, right? They look at the Pope and they just see another CEO in another business. That's all they see. And honestly, it's hard to disagree with that appraisal. Yeah, they did the most potent thing they could. A strongly worded letter. Exactly. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll convince these guys. A strongly worded letter? Holy shit, the he's just nailing it. He's totally rolling these psychopathic capitalists with this strongly worded letter. Like, it again, I find myself saying, oh, look, another leftist who's not organizing people to get on the streets and protest, right? Yet another leftist who has found a way to make money off of the system, right? Who is completely disincentivized from actually altering or changing the system in any kind of meaningful way, who is once again not utilizing their hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers to get into the streets and surround the halls of power in order to force the political class to change the structure of the system. So yet another fake-ass leftist who's only interested in saying what needs to be said in order to get you to give them donations so that they can go buy another fucking gold toilet or whatever, right? Just like it's the same fucking grift over and over and over and over again. Because if you're making your money and you're making your living off of the system of systemic poverty and the systemic exploitation, then you're only interested in standing up against it in theory. You're never actually going to get off your golden ass throne, take off your stupid Pope hat, get into the streets and surround yourself with millions of people around the halls of power in order to force them to do any of this shit. It's never gonna happen. So all he is looking out for is his own fucking neck. So that if a revolution does happen, and if people begin taking to the streets in meaningful ways, they might leave him alone. That's all this is about. This is all this is about, right? Because he's just another lame dick. He's no different than any of these like YouTube leftists who call themselves. I don't know who these YouTube leftists are. There's lots of people on YouTube saying that they're a leftist. There's lots of people on YouTube who are like, defend communism, sure, and defend socialism, but like they're not getting out in the streets. They're not even trying to get out in the streets, right? They don't give a fuck at all. Speaking of that very thing, we are having a protest November 7th, 2 p.m., okay? November 7th, 2 p.m., 6 Tetton Hall Road. It's Doug Ford's house, 6 Tetton Hall Road, November 7th, 2 p.m. If you're in Toronto or the Toronto area or around, please come. We are going to Doug Ford's house so that we can shit on him to his face. That's what we plan on doing because we are exhausted with this bullshit, right? There are people collapsing in homelessness. There are people, and fucking the Pope isn't gonna gather anybody around and give a shit. A series of tweets that he cranked out while shitting on the toilet, right? Whoa! Wow, the Pope, guys. The Pope's so credible, right? This guy has the same amount of credibility as any of these YouTube leftists who are not galvanizing their people, who are not trying to build a base, who are not actually doing any of that. They're just protecting their business interests. That's what they are doing. Well, if you made it to this point, guys, please be sure to like, share, subscribe. If you got some money down below, you could throw it down in my Patreon, right? $5 gives you all access to my music, gives you access to all that kind of stuff. Good luck. We're gonna need it. Babinga. There's the clip. There's the clip. Whoa, at the same time the Catholic Church does all this is promoting anti-China propaganda. Wow, weird. Yeah, it's almost like they're just a fucking business with a CEO, right? Who is just attempting to protect his own interests. Like, the Catholic Church, like, when I talk about credible institutions and how there are no credible institutions, like, at the bottom of the list is the Catholic Church. What credibility does this institution have any longer? Why should we even take this guy seriously at all? Like, we're standing up being like, whoa, you just said a bunch of leftist shit. Whoa. Yeah. So that if something serious goes down in the society, you might leave them alone, right? No. If the Catholic Church was actually on our side, right, they would be galvanizing their people into the streets. They would be using their massive assets in order to actually feed and clothe the poor and house the poor, which they don't, right? Outside of the tokenism that's required to do like the baseline, right? They're not leveraging their positions in order to get politicians to actually give a shit about anybody. They don't give a fuck at all. They don't give a fuck at all. The only thing that's remarkable about it is that they felt the need that they had to say it. That's the only thing that's remarkable about this at all. That the Catholic Church has gotten to a point where they at least have to pretend like they care, right? They at least have to pretend as though they're interested in the Bible they don't read. They at least have to care, to pretend to, right? They're not actually going to do anything, right? But hey, we got 8 tweets, so that makes up for everything, right? That's good enough, right? Fucking embarrassing. This is so sad because South America has great liberation theology tradition that you wish he had been more influenced by. I mean, maybe he is a good man, right? Like this is the thing I think that's important to remember, Duke. Like maybe he is, right? Maybe that's why he got in, because they knew like, oh, we need a pope that actually has a moral center and a moral core, who actually cares about people, who isn't a pedophile, right? We need a pope that can actually deliver with a straight face these messages, and maybe he believes it, right? So, like, it doesn't matter. The institution is completely without credibility. It's like saying that there's a good man in capitalism. It doesn't exist, right? You can't be a good capitalist. There's just no, you can't be a good man and a good capitalist. It's like saying, oh, I'm one of the good slave owners. Like, it doesn't exist, right? It's a paradox. It's completely a contradiction, right? And it's the same thing here. Who cares if the Pope is a good man, right? The institution he is a part of is completely corrupted and without credibility and cannot be reformed or changed. It's embedded into the capitalist system. They're one of the largest landowners on the planet, right? They work with capitalists. They work with capitalist governments, right? And to do what? To release tweets, to get petty reformism, right? Like, they're not actually going to be part of anything. They're not going to... And if somebody were to stand up with enough force to get people onto the streets, the Catholic Church is not going to be a part of it. There's not going to be like a Catholic group. Like, that's not going to be it. If anything, they're going to work against it. Because they're going to be like, no, we all need to calm down, right? We need to peacefully discuss and come together and all this kind of stuff. So the Catholic Church is going to work as a diffusing force. And that's what this is. It's diffusing, right? It's, oh, you don't need to take to the streets and surround the halls of power. Oh, no, you don't need to take to the streets and actually surround Doug Ford's house, surround Justin Trudeau's house, surround these guys' house and actually force them to do the job you elected them to do in the first place. No, you don't need to do any of that. Because, look, the Pope, right? The Pope is convincing them. Look, it's all just going to be reasonably discussed and welcome to reasonable terms, and it'll all be... But none of these guys are fucking reasonable. They're all psychopaths. And the system of the Catholic Church is psychopathic. Like, why do you think they keep raping children? Like, what do you think that's about? Right? And they keep doing it. More keep coming out. Like, in what universe does the Catholic Church have any credibility whatsoever? And when they put up a guy who at least pretends to give a shit about the book that he probably doesn't read, that's just them defending themselves. Like, it's obvious. This is obvious shit. They're not our allies, and they're never going to be our allies. Like, the only thing that these people will respect, is if we surround their houses and if we surround their work. That's it. They will respect nothing else. I don't care if you march 1 billion people past their door. If you march 100 million, 1 billion people past their door in a big protest, waving flags and screaming about stuff, and you walk by their house, they'll watch it go and be like, huh, well, that was interesting. Status quo, right? Surround their house. Do not let them leave. It's very fucking straightforward at this point. And the reason the Pope is saying this is to ensure that we will not do that. Oh, it's what an unreasonable position to take. Oh, it's so extreme. Can't we just, like, talk about this peacefully? Yeah, we have been doing that for the last 20 years. Look where it's got us. Fucking nowhere. Did you hear about the Saskatchewan seniors facility telling family to come take care of their own families because of lack of vaccine and healthcare workers and lots quitting? I'm not surprised to see lots and lots of people quitting. Well, I mean, and like, this idea that we need seniors facilities, right? Like, really think about this, okay? Like, this is something I've been dwelling on for a little while. See you, Alex, if you're not already gone, bud. The idea of there being a facility to store our elderly seems to be like a capitalist creation. That we generally took care of our elderly as families, right? Like, we generally did that. They were in the house and all of this. But because the way the capitalist structure works, where you have to be gone for most of the day to work this job that you hate, right? That you barely tolerate. Well, something needs to be done with the elderly, so you erect a building and you hire somebody to look over them and ignore them while they die in the corner of neglect, right? That's the Canadian system, right? The Canadian system is to take the elderly, jam them into these underfunded death traps that are loaded with fucking just mold, give them moldy ass shit food, don't even give them water, right? Just like abandon them into the corner while they They wallow in their own shit, right? That's the Canadian long-term care home system, so that Mike Harris can sit on the board of directors and make a whole bunch of fucking money for himself. And Doug Ford's going to do the same goddamn fucking shit. So, yeah, people are quitting. Yeah, of course people are quitting, right? Like, my job is to neglect the elderly. Yeah, lots of people are quitting, for sure. Especially, my job is to neglect the elderly for minimum wage. Yeah, okay. Like, okay. Right? Yeah, I can't imagine why people aren't working that job anymore. Yeah, I would never do it. My mom lives with me. Yeah. Well, but the reality, Ruth, is that some people have to. Like, that they don't have an alternative. That they literally cannot, they cannot afford to have their parents living with them. Right? It's one of the great abominations of the capitalist model. Right? When it's every man for themselves. Well, if it's every man for themselves, but we have like the vulnerable elderly, right? The solution that we seem to be creating here in Canada is to create an institution that is so intolerable and so evil towards the elderly that they will opt for the medically assisted suicide. That seems to be the structure of this system. And that's probably going to get pretty obvious pretty soon. Especially if we're stupid enough to turn around and vote for, like, Del Duca, who's not going to do fucking anything about these long-term care homes. Like, he's just going to, like, just like the McGuinty's, just like Wynne, he's just going to turn a blind eye, let these festering tumors continue to abuse our elderly, right? And the capitalists will create an efficient model to get rid of these people. So seniors get COVID or get abandoned. Is this for-profit private facility maybe? Yeah. Parents get a pension, hire someone in home. I mean, everybody's trying what they can. Everybody's doing what they can. And everybody's situation is unique and everybody's situation is different. So I don't really judge the people who end up putting their parents into these care facilities because, again, like, it's a difficult situation for all parties. Like, obviously, you're shepherding someone to their death. Like, there's no use pretending otherwise, right? We all know what the end game is here. That's what was so funny about my grandma. My grandma, she's like me. My grandma Beth, she was like me. She would tell the truth and she didn't give a shit, right? I actually really admire her for this. And she wanted to eat grapes. She's like 96 at this point and like really like can't really do much. And they won't let her eat a grape because they're worried that she's going to choke on it. And she just said straight out, like, well, so? like, so? Something's got to get you, dear. Something's got to get you. And so they made her sign, like, a waiver and, like, all this kind of shit so that she could eat grapes and so that they wouldn't, like, blame the staff or anything. I'm just, like, literally like, oh, my God. Like, something's got to get you, dear. Something's got to get you. Right? So I don't... This is something I really don't like about this fake culture that we live in, right? We just, like... This is how we approach death. We're just like, la, 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 la. We don't like to talk about it. We don't like to observe it. We don't like to be honest about it. We don't want anybody to really, like, know or contemplate the fact that we all get that, like, this is temporary. We're gonna die. Like, that's part of the shtick. It's part of the shtick. And I feel like when we don't talk about it, you get worse outcomes, right? Because that spiritual and existential and emotional anxiety and tension that exists from the process of coming to terms with your own death, if you don't actually process that, if you don't actually come to terms with it, all kinds of crazy shit you can do, right? Like, people do crazy, wacky shit once they get into their 60s, dude. If they don't actually deal with this concept that, like, oh, hey, I am going to die soon, right? And just I don't ever want to be one of those old people that is facing the moment of their death with regret. Like, I wish I hadn't worked so much. I wish I'd have gotten to know my family better. I wish I'd actually done that thing I wanted to do. Like, all of those things, I hear that coming out of the mouths of like a 70, 80-year-old. It fucking breaks my heart. Breaks my heart that, like, we've created a system that incentivizes people to ignore their internal voice and their internal instincts, ignore their family, ignore their friends, ignore their passions, and pursue what? Like what exactly? They're like base survival is what they're pursuing. Just like the barest minimum. We could do so much better. Like we could do so much better. Yeah, my grandma was the most evil-spirited person. My mom took her in and it drove my mom into a hospital and therapy. I skipped the funeral. Ooh. Tough story, Bumble. Tough story. Hey man. Some people come like, and this is another thing that people don't really want to admit or talk about. Some people come into this reality and they're just dicks. Like they're just total pains in the ass. Oh, here's a great one that I saw. So Hoyeon Jung, Squid Game star, reveals in a recent interview to Vogue Korea that lately she's been obsessed with well-known communist Mao Zedong. I just liked him getting rid of landlords. That's fucking pretty based right there, man. Pretty baller right there. Like, yeah, I just like him getting rid of landlords. Just get rid of these guys, right? Yeah, this makes me like her a lot more. Gotta tell you. Hey, Oddity, how you doing? I'm in a similar position myself. Yeah, like, death is tough, eh? Like, we really want to just sort of shunt it into a corner. We really want to, like, make sure that we don't need to handle this. And Duke, I think you're hitting on something here, right? My family had plenty of opportunities to get to know me. Thank you for your vulnerability, by the way, Duke. They've blown it enough. I've stopped caring. Not sure what will happen to them. I suppose my siblings will handle it. Yeah. I mean, I've actually seen people who have like avoided interacting with their own parents because they see their parents in this state of decline and they can't handle it. They can't handle that their parents are going to die and they don't want to deal and they don't have the emotional capacity, they don't have the openness and the vulnerability in order to even handle the fact that they live in a system that ultimately kills us. Like, and so they detach, right? They detach from their own parents and they detach from their families because they just cannot, it will not compute. And seeing that decline, they then have to turn around and understand that that's happening to them as well, right? They just don't have the capacity for it. There's always one sibling who gets all the responsibility. Absolutely. I've talked to that sibling. Hey, Onward, how you doing, bud? Like, when I was in funeral services, there was always one person. Who gets all the responsibility. And I will never forget it. There was one time when we went in to get the body, as you do. And there was the woman, I believe it was the deceased's daughter, if I'm not mistaken. And she was just like a ball of energy. And she was just like this and talking to people and this on the phone, getting things organized, all of this kind of stuff, right? And then finally she gets to a place where all the pieces are in place, right? And then she turns to us and she says, okay, what's next? And my partner looked at her and said, well, now we take your mother to the facility, and from there, we'll get everything prepared, and then you'll just come to the funeral. And she goes, okay, well, what do I have to do now? And he looked at her and he just said, nothing. Everything from here on is taken care of. You don't have to do a thing. And she went, I don't have to do a thing? And he said, you don't have to do a thing. And she literally just like melted. Like, I don't know how to explain it, really. Over the space of about 30 seconds, she just... And she became a completely different person. Just a different energy filled the room. Everything was totally new and different. And like... It literally was a shift in the emotional state of the energy around us. It was brilliant to witness and to see. And that responsibility, right? That responsibility and that tension and that anxiety can really build up in a person and really cause some problems. And it does seem to be the case that it's always one person. Everybody else is just kind of wandering around in a haze. It used to always be me, now not anymore. Yeah. I feel like an elderly person. I'm 30 with a disability with a life expectancy of around 30s. Here we go, Major. Here we go. Every day at this stage in the game, I don't like it when people say, like, when they get into their old age. I'm certainly not going to say this when I get into my old age, that every day is a gift. Like, I'm not going to say that kind of shit. I'm going to say every day is about maximizing the amount of damage I can do. That's what it's about. It's not a gift. It's about maximizing the damage. That means moving up the timetable. Time to get grumpy. Yell at kids on your lawn. Come on, chop chop. That's a good point, Major. You gotta really lean into it, man. I'm that person as well, but I love my mom because I forgave all her faults and realized that she'd been through the Holocaust. Oh yes, so she deserves a little extra leeway. Well, and I do think one of the things about maturing as like what takes you from like your teenage years or your early 20s into your 30s and some people don't actually get there, but it is maturing and realizing that your parents are also just people, right? Like so much of the like, oh, my parents, they did this and that to me and all that kind of stuff comes from the idea that they were supposed to kind of be perfect guides or perfect avatars or leaders even. When the reality is like they're victims of this capitalist model just like we are, right? That they are just like being ground into it just like we are. And they don't really necessarily know what's going on, right? They don't really understand what's happening. And so once you come to terms with that like they are just people who are trying their best, but like we shouldn't expect miracles, it gets a lot easier to deal with what's going on. I know for me, like my family, we went through a divorce when I was in my teenage years. It was very tumultuous. And it was especially bad because I was a Christian evangelical. Told my whole life that, oh, if your parents get divorced, then they're going to hell. And then suddenly my parents get a divorce. Wow. Oh, okay. And my dad was an elder of the church, and they like literally ostracized him. Like he stopped being an elder of the church. He used to perform music at the church. They stopped that. Like he lost basically everything when the divorce happened. And like looking back on it, all parties, my dad, my mom, myself, like everybody that matters in my life anymore, looks at it and says like, man, that could have gone a lot differently. Like that could have gone a lot differently, couldn't it? Yeah, like we all look at that and think like, man, it would have been a lot nicer if we had not had that whole layer of like people are going to hell in the church and all that kind of stuff. And because like the truth is that people grow apart, you know? Which is exactly what I think happened to my parents. I take a look at them as people, and I'm just like, yeah, there's like my mom is like a firebrand feminist, not a firebrand feminist, but just like she is a feminist. She's got like a wanderer's spirit, and my dad is like a conservative, like just a hard-nosed sort of conservative man. So it's like two very different people. Yeah, so thankful my parents didn't turn further right in the Trump years like so many their age did. Yeah, that'd be tough to take a look at onward. That'd be so tough to deal with, like, people turning to the right. Oof. Especially the Trump right? Like, that's just difficult. I don't know who needs to hear this, but the whole point of having a developed economy is that we get to work less while still getting our basic needs met. The goal is to spend as little time as possible at work, so we actually get to enjoy being alive on the planet together. Like, I genuinely think that if any other creature were dealing with this level of bullshit from their quote-unquote leaders, they already would have, like, overthrown the whole thing, right? Like, if in a tribe of apes, if one ape hoards all the bananas for itself, the other apes go up to that ape and kill it and then distribute the bananas. Like, this isn't difficult to figure out. right? It's just, as humans, we like to make things as complicated as it can be. Yeah, it's not about loving perfect people, but loving imperfect people perfectly. Look at you, Bumble Guppy. You need to, like, write these things down, dude. You need to write these things down in, like, a little book, right? And call it, like, the bumbling wisdom from the guppy, you know? And, like, have, like, a page a day, right? Like chicken soup for the soul. Like, you got good shit, dude. Like, there's good stuff in there. Like, every day you flip it over like a calendar, there'd be, like, a picture of a baby holding, like, a guitar, or like a chick in the hand of a chimp looking down on it, right? And then underneath it would be like, it's not about loving perfect people, but loving imperfect people perfectly. I just wrote it down here, John. Oh, good. Yeah, good. For all to see. It is a beautiful sentiment, bud. When, as an adult, you get to know your parents and realize you just don't like them as people is weird. Yeah, there's that too, eh, Duke? Like, I am fortunate that I actually think both my parents, I love them both very dearly. I do think that the distance helps a great deal. But I definitely know what you're talking about. And I definitely know people who are just like, yeah, my parents, not the greatest. Here I am. There's no rules. Anyone can have a kid. That's the wackiest thing. Anyone can have a kid. Bumbleguppy, never admit that. Never admit that you stole the line. It's you just need to pump your YouTube numbers, pal. Coffee is for closers. If my parents were Trumpers, I would divorce them and tell the side of my family to care for them. Oh, yeah. Don't know if I could still respect parents who were deep into QAnon. Yeah, I might still love them, but I couldn't see them the same. Although I don't think of all this is freely chosen either. The QAnon stuff is weird, man. It's interesting, right? Like, America especially, and I know myself, I love conspiracy. I really do. Like, conspiracy theories are super, super fun. And it's super fun just as, like, a mind experiment and, like, just to think about things in weird other kinds of ways to think. But the QAnon stuff isn't even conspiracy. Like, it isn't. Like, it's detached from anything is the thing about it. It's completely detached from, like, the best conspiracies have a degree of plausibility, right? Like Bigfoot as a conspiracy, or as a conspiracy theory is like, or as, he's not really a conspiracy theory, I suppose, but the moon landing, right? The faked moon landing, like, that has a certain degree of plausibility to it, right? Like, it's plausible. Bush did 9/11, right? The 9/11 inside job thing, it has a certain degree of plausibility. Even Russiagate has a certain degree of plausibility. But, like, the QAnon stuff is always, like, way out in the middle of left field. It's just completely detached from anything. Yeah. Yeah, John, as a connoisseur of conspiracy, wants to understand just how trash QAnon is. Yeah. Back in my day, conspiracies had some merit, goddammit. People really, like, looked at conspiracies and were like, oh, yeah, okay. This QAnon shit. It's poorly aged. It doesn't have the right je ne sais quoi, right? It doesn't quite hit the mark. It's all just nonsense is the thing. It's literally the most made up shit ever. Like, they might as well be talking about fucking My Little Pony, like Pegasi, or actually, like, spreading bullshit into the atmosphere or whatever. QAnon has a capitalist finish with just a hint of CIA aroma. Yes, that's perfect. Sometimes love comes and goes, but sometimes you just come and go. I mean, I don't know if QAnon is a CIA psyop. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm like 95% sure the CIA is involved, but it's too big. There's too many people involved in it for it to be completely a psyop, right? Like, certainly there must be CIA involvement, but if there is CIA involvement, it's not going to be enough to be the backbone of what this movement is about, right? Like, that QAnon, in my view, is what happens when you create a mistrustful, desperate population, right? Like, if you don't have QAnon is the mature form of MK Ultra. Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. And don't get me wrong, like, if somebody showed me a CIA document saying, like, here's how they did the QAnon thing, I would be like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, I wouldn't fight it at all. And yeah, operatives usually enlist a number of useful idiots, often helping unwittingly. The trouble with this, okay, is that there's too many QAnon followers. We're in the millions now, right? Like, it's yeah, Ruth, they may have started it, but it's gotten out of control. Yeah, they definitely don't have control of it. Like, that's the thing that I think I'm landing on. That even if the CIA was instrumental in getting the ball rolling, or even if they came in as the whole thing was starting and, like, really built it, they don't have control of it. It's going to go where it's going to go, right? And it's going to do what it's going to do. And so many years of infiltrating and co-opting the left, it must be child's play to infiltrate QAnon. Yeah. There's that too, dude. There's that too. And, like, it is a cult. Like, it is a cult. I think that's the thing that really I have to distinguish. Like, it's not a conspiracy theory itself. It is a cult. So the cult itself is generating conspiracy theories, but QAnon, like, it's and the question becomes, like, what's sustaining and maintaining the cult? And I think it goes beyond, like, Donald Trump as a figure. I think it goes beyond, like, it goes into that space of, like, there is a dream reality, right? There's a dream reality that people want to insist can be attained or should be attained, that this dream reality needs to be manifest, and it's not manifesting itself, right? Even though many of these QAnon people believe that they're doing everything right and following the right rules and all of this, it isn't manifesting itself. And so they have gotten together and they're just trying to find reasons for why the dream reality is not manifesting itself, right? And perhaps at first the CIA was helping to organize this or moving it around, but, like, there's so much energy now and there's so many people involved that if the CIA exists in it, it's like one head of a hydra, right? Like, it's like one head of the thing. It's not totally in control, but if they can control enough of it, enough of the time, and just enough of a way, it can still be useful. Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. I think boomers all retired at the same time and have too much time on their hands, and Facebook broke them. Yeah, heard that there's lots of QAnon in Germany. Oh, that's good. What? Nothing bad has ever happened to Germany, right? Like, Germany seems fine. Yeah. Because QAnon is perfect, because it is essentially a self-reinforcing state of suggestibility. So many nefarious actors could use that ultimately. Well, and you're seeing it being done openly. Like, the ivermectin hydrochloroquine grift is so obviously just, like, a way to snake oil salesman these people. Like, hey, I've got a wonder drug for you. Oh, you're scared you got the COVID? Better take your ivermectin, right? Like, and because the people involved in this don't have, because they don't have any trust anymore, right? Because they're like, and I hate to say this, but I don't know how else to say this, and maybe someone can help me with this so that I can say it in a nicer way, but a lot of the people involved in the QAnon movement are simple folk, right? That they're simple folk who are on the internet, right? They don't know, they know enough not to trust the mainstream media any longer, right? They know enough not to put their faith in the establishment politicians and things like this, but they don't know enough to really know that someone like Donald Trump is actually part of the establishment, right? They don't know enough to really understand that getting into the Republican Party and attempting to influence the political system through the Republican Party is like trying to become freed from slavery by seeking the goodwill of your master, right? Like, it just doesn't actually work that way. It's actually not how things happen. And and because they're simple, right? I highly recommend everybody go watch Q Into the Storm. It's a great documentary about a fellow who found out about the Q movement right at its inception, so right as it was beginning to grow, and he begins asking the very simple question, who is Q, right? And the whole documentary is him trying to out this Q figure. And the entire time he's doing it, he goes and he's interviewing people all over the place, right? People who are involved in the Q movement, people who are involved in this kind of thing. And I really fucking hate to break it to you guys, but these people are simple folk. Like, they're simple folk who just, like, if you really sat them down and you started to explain how the system is actually structured, they would think that's an enormous conspiracy, right? That's what's really funny about QAnon, is that the actual structure of how the thing actually looks would be considered like a way far out in left field, crazy communist speculation and theory, right? But what they're saying is completely believable, right? And like, this again is what happens. QAnon is what happens when you betray a population so thoroughly, when none of your institutions have any credibility, when no one knows who to turn to, right? And so who do they turn to? The first fucking grifter that comes on by and picks them up. Donald J. Trump, right? And now, and because Donald Trump is the only guy that was willing to talk to these people, and because he's like playing the game with them and all this, while the other politicians were shitting on Donald Trump, you remember, right? So they see him, he's an icon now, right? He's iconic within the Q movement. He can do no wrong because he's on their side and he's fighting for them, right? And like, the second Trump term is going to be really brutal. It's going to be really brutal. A second term of Donald Trump, it's going to be a really, really vicious period of time. Like, we've seen the lengths that this guy is willing to go, like, to maintain his own vanity project and to maintain his power. Like, the idea that this guy is not going to go full scale, right, is he's going to go full scale, man. Like, his ego is what's going to be the downfall of America. That at the end of the day, the democratic system in America is so fragile and so weak that it can be taken down by one arrogant narcissist. Like, and America is heading to down that road. And because the institutions throughout America have no credibility, no one sees them as being credible whatsoever, that as Donald Trump dismantles the systems, his followers will celebrate it because they have no credibility anyway, right? And like, we're going into like a real crazy period here. Like, this channel is gonna go nuts when the next American election starts, dude. Like, the next American election, like, this channel is gonna be the place to be. Because I'm the one that's going to be standing around being like, here's Donald Trump, future president. Like Biden only beat him by a very thin margin in the first place. And it was all done on this like heightened, like, Donald Trump is so bad and will be so much better, and Biden hasn't been better. In what way has Biden been better than Trump? Like, really? And like, the people who are voting for Biden are not going to be like excited to do it. They're not going to really see a difference. Yeah, the problem with American elections is they take like 2 years. Yeah. Well, it's all a show, right? It's all just for fun. I would bet all declining societies had something similar. Yeah. Simple folk used to make our products and perform services. Used to be they would have something productive to do. Deindustrialization has fallout. Yeah, that's true. These are simple farmers. Well, I mean, like, you used to be able to, like, leave school at grade 9, walk across the street to, like, a canning factory, and get, like, a job that would pay you enough to have a house, 3 kids, a wife, and a car, right? Like, it wasn't that crippling to, like, not have an education. And now we have a society where if you go and get yourself a fucking PhD, you can get a job for $15 an hour, like, at Staples. Like, no. I remember Bernie had a town hall in the South with right-wing audience, and they were nodding in agreement when he explained policy. Not having any alternative to libs or cons is an issue. Exactly. No, this is the thing, is that lots and lots of right-wing people listen to Bernie Sanders and think, oh, that's just good common sense, right? Like, in the truest sense, like, a left-wing politician and a right-wing politician both should agree fundamentally that their goal is to make life the best that it can be for the citizenry, right? That's the reason why I call this a capitalist death cult, because it's completely disinterested in helping the citizens. That the goal of the system is not to have an outcome that helps the citizens whatsoever, right? The goal of the system is to now create profits for shareholders. That's what the system is about, right? That if that there is no one interested in at any level throughout the political or legal system in America, 0% people are interested in helping anyone. That's not the point of the system. That's why it's a death cult. Because if the system was actually operating in an attempt even to benefit the populace, well, then the right wing would stand up and say, we think that the best way to help the populace is with X idea. And the left wing would say, we disagree. We think that the best way would be to help people with Y idea. But they don't have ideas. They're not interested in helping people. And all their ideas are the same ideas. And the ideas that they have and they talk about are literally given to them by the industries that are exploiting us, right? Like Justin Trudeau's carbon tax, right? They keep touting this and saying, like, the carbon tax will do it. The carbon tax will do it. It's like literally a policy that was given to him by the fossil fuel industry in order to diffuse costs throughout the populace instead of making these fucking psychopaths actually pay for the pollution that they produce. Like, yuck. And like, in a normal, like in a rational society, Bernie Sanders is like not even really a socialist. Like, he calls himself democratic socialist, but you listen to his ideas and it's like, sounds pretty liberal to me, right? Like, Bernie Sanders is like been pegged with this democratic socialism thing, but I genuinely think the reason he's walking around saying, yeah, I'm a socialist, is because that's his brand, right? That's just his brand, right? Like while the Undertaker and Bret the Hitman Hart are all fighting, right? Like in the ring, the socialist comes out and he's wearing like a big S on his chest and he's wearing all red and he comes out with the chair, comes and hits the Undertaker, maybe like gives Bret the Hitman Hart a trip or something, right? And runs out while the audience is cheering like, yeah, socialism, yeah, right? That's just his character. That's his branding. He's the socialist. But you listen to his ideas and you listen to his thoughts and you're just like, yeah, okay, he sounds like a liberal, right? Looks like a liberal to me. He's not really interested in like the dismantling of the system. Not really. Sounds like it's just normal reforms. Like, you would think that like I would be more like, yeah, he's a socialist because he's espousing a universal healthcare system. But like at this stage in the game, putting in a universal healthcare system is a conservative position. Like, are you kidding me? Like, and I mean an actual conservative person, not a far-right fascist neoliberal nonsense position. Like, any conservative on the planet, if you are actually a conservative, would say, you're telling me that there's a system that's going to save all of my citizens money, right? It's cheaper, and it has better outcomes. Done. Pull the switch on that. Conservative position, right? Like, a universal healthcare system at this stage, there's literally over 100 nations that have it. Over 100 nations have it, and it works, and it's obvious, and it's very straightforward. There are studies on it. It's right in front of your face. It's like smacking you in the face as hard as it possibly can. The tests have been done. Everything is on the table. We see it for what it is, right? It's not a socialist position to want your country to have universal healthcare. Like, it's barely a liberal position. At this point, it's the only people who are against it are neoliberal fascists. Like, it's so clear that it should be put in. So to me, Bernie Sanders is just playing the game. He's just playing the game. He knows his character. He knows his position. He knows his place. He knows what he's supposed to do, right? Hardcore capitalists have had their minds so warped they are past the point of changing. Well, and there's a big problem as well that we got infected with free market principles, right? The idea that, the free market will decide. Let's put all our trust into this free market, which the more I investigate and the more I think about, I don't see any difference between the statement, let the free market decide, and let chaos reign. Right? That chaos is exactly what has happened to this society. We have opened the doors of chaos, and the god of chaos is going through the society, and we've been so inundated with this spirit of chaos, and we've been so inundated with this idea that the free market will decide or chaos will reign, that when we actually see people standing around saying, hey, we could actually organize this, right? We could create order and actually have laws and structures, right? We could actually do this so that things were less chaotic. The Chaos Death Knights lose their minds about it. The fucking Nazgul see that as fucking Frodo marching to the volcano with the ring to throw it in, right? Like, that's what they think, right? Because in many ways it is. Because the people who are succeeding in this system of chaos are like psychopaths. They're not different than like the fucking Nazgul, right? They're just flying around on their fucking big giant birds and shit, trying to find the one ring so that they can take it back to their master so that it won't get destroyed in the fucking volcano. Like, and we are warped. Like I was just saying this the other day to a friend. I was like, the United States keeps accusing places of being authoritarian, and anytime I take a look at what they're talking about, it looks to me like what they're saying is, this place has laws that its citizens agreed to, and then when even a rich person breaks those laws, they enforce them. That's so authoritarian. Having rules that are enforced by even by the rich? We like our free market chaos system, thank you very much, where we write laws down, but we don't really follow them, right? Where we apply certain laws to the poor to heavy penalty, and we never apply those rules to the rich, ever, under any circumstances, because that's the free market deciding, right? Like, a rich person can always just buy their way out, right? A rich person can always negotiate their way out, right? Rich people, like, that's just free market chaos death knight enterprise, the capitalist death system at work. This place has rules? Authoritarian. Authoritarian. Workers aren't poor because they know how to save money or cook a cheap meal. They're poor because a minority of capitalists own the means of production, exploit their labor, and pay them as little as possible. Workers are poor because capitalists are rich. Wah-wah-wah-wah-wah. You can either have people proud of their work or proud boys in the streets. I love the cool guy smiley at the end of that. Just like straight up like, ow! Get the who. Who are you? Who, 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 who. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Who are you? Who, 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 who. Once the pandemic dies down, a whole load of nurses are going to rightfully go on strike, demanding compensation and reform for the suffering and risk they have been put through, and the public discourse is going to switch on a dime, from heroes to selfish, crazy unions. Just you watch. Yeah, when the unions, when the nurses go on strike, and it's gonna happen, dude. Like, there's the only thing that's keeping nurses going on strike right now is the fact that people will die for it, right? That like there is like and they know that the capitalist class will use it against them, right? Like, people are dying, you guys need to get back to work, right? Like, that's absolutely what'll happen to these nurses and doctors. But once we make it through, absolutely there's going to be a nurses and a doctor's strike. It's absolutely going to happen. And I am of the opinion that when the nurses and the doctors start to funnel themselves into the political system, and they start seeking election, that we should elect them, right? Like, can't be worse than these fucking guys that we've been voting for. And like, I would like to vote for, like, the doctors of Ontario. The doctors of Ontario have outright said that the number one health concern in the province is poverty, right? That if you actually care about helping people on a health issue, on a health level, then you want to confront the issues of poverty. It's the number one thing that they are working against and that they are fighting against. And I've talked to doctors who straight up are like, yeah, I talk to somebody and like they are a homeless person or they're living in precarious situation, and I say to them like, hey, like, here's you need to work on your diet, like this is the thing that you got to work on, and literally they say to me like, yeah, great, I don't have any money, right? And like, I'm like, okay, like that's the reason why you keep coming in here, right? And you don't have money to solve it. Okay, so the issue is poverty, and it's the number one issue according to the doctors of Ontario. And even more than that, if we gave the poor the money they needed to resolve the issues that the doctors of Ontario are complaining about, it would be cheaper for us than maintaining the system of poverty we have in place now. Like, do you see how fucking stupid we are? Do you see how sociopathic and nightmarishly psychotic our system is? We pay more to maintain this system of poverty so that we can see homeless people, so that people can stay desperate, instead of paying less, right? And having people be happier, reducing poverty in the society, increasing people's health outcomes, according to the doctors of Ontario, right? What's wrong with us? Like, what the fuck is actually wrong with us? Why are we so stupid? Like, at some point, I've got to start saying that we want people to suffer. Like, we think that the people who are suffering deserve it, and we've made that decision that they deserve it because the great chaos death knight free market system has taken its hand down and said, aha, you can't contribute to the capitalist death cult. Into the streets with you, pleb. You will act as a scarecrow of fear in order to drive others into my worthless jobs that exist only explicitly to continue feeding me. Like, it's gross, dude. It's gross. Instead of having shelters, instead of having food banks, instead of emergency police services, instead of emergency doctor service, emergency dentist service, emergency services across the board, instead of all of that, we literally could have a basic income and it would be cheaper. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, we've gone beyond stupidity. We've gone beyond stupidity. We are in cruelty. Like, we are in cruelty. We are looking at people who are drowning in the pool, and instead of just like holding out a hand and pulling them out of the pool, we're just looking down at them with a sneer and saying, swim harder. That's what we're doing. And when they drown, we just go, that's just the free market deciding. That's what we're doing, right? And then we pay a guy to come and clean up the body, right? Oh, and if they manage to start climbing their way out of the pool, some cop comes by and bops them, right? And we pay that guy too. And all of that is like 10 times more expensive than just getting them out of the pool. Like, we're a very, very, very cruel, indecent, grotesque society. These issues are resolvable easily, and our leaders are not doing it. Right? Justin Trudeau's not going to pass a basic income. He's not interested in that. Right? The Conservatives certainly won't. And big question marks as to how much the NDP actually give a shit about this. Right? Like, we want to pay more as a species. We want it. We love it. We love watching their suffering. I really do think so. It's like you're watching, like, it's like when you watch a reality TV show. Like, and there's some competition. Like Survivor, for God's sakes. You're watching like a reality TV show. You're literally just enjoying the suffering of someone else as they struggle towards this end point that doesn't exist for the other people that struggle in the society, right? But like, we're watching a reality TV show and just jerking off to how much suffering that these people are going through, right? For the glimmering hope of maybe something on the other side. And like, we don't really like to acknowledge that only one of them walks away with the prize. And that's because it's structural. That's because it's designed that way, right? All of the other people who just disappear from memory as if they never existed, right? Well, they fucking end up in the street. We don't give a fuck. We're too busy jerking off, like looking at the system of suffering we've erected. It's brutal. It's fucking brutal. And people are brainwashed to not see it's a system of poverty. It's not naturally created this way. Yeah, exactly. It isn't naturally created this way. It's a system that was erected by rich oligarchs, if you want to call them that, but just rich cocksuckers, basically, erected a system of domination and control, right? It starts with the beginning of capitalism throughout Europe. And literally every culture essentially militarized its populace while industrializing their children and their women, right? Like, that's what happened. And they took the militarily conscripted serfs, sent them down into Africa to enslave the black population, and then went across to the New World where they committed a genocide against the First Nations people, right? And it straight up doesn't have to be that way at all. Like, it straight up does not have to be that way at all. And for what? Like, that's the big question. Like, for what? What do we gain ultimately? Like, really, what do we gain? The people that did that are long dead, right? And now here we are dealing with the fallout of this cataclysm that we've inflicted not only on the black population of Africa, not only on the First Nations populations of North America, but also our own populations, right? Like, the displacement and the trauma that we've put ourselves through. And again, for what? To what end? For what purpose? To do what? To gain what? True liberty is the free market deciding that you're in too low of an income bracket to provide decent healthcare to. Exactly. Well, and that's one of the things about the free market, right? That the free market allows abandonment, right? That if it's actually a free market, well, abandonment is on the cards, right? So I don't understand why we should tolerate such a thing. One thing my significant other and I noticed is that we both test pretty low on the sadism scale. We both hate America's Funniest Home Videos when someone gets hurt. I don't think it's funny. Yeah. Like, that is actually an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? Like, Dave Chappelle said, everything's funny until it happens to you, right? And I don't know if that's such a healthy attitude. I don't know if that's such a healthy position to have, right? Maybe things that are hurtful should not be considered funny. But it's who we are as a people, right? That's the thing about humor, right? If it makes you laugh, it makes you laugh. And it's interesting that we are a culture that finds other people's suffering funny, right? It's true. And the Germans actually create a word for this, Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude, I'm mispronouncing it for sure. And it's the idea that it's taking pleasure from other people's suffering, right? Not surprising that the Germans create a word for it, right? and Schadenfreude, 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 Schadenfreude. Like, it just doesn't. There's a lot of interesting things about the human psyche that I think we need to confront. This is one of them, that people take pleasure from other people's misery, right? Another one, there's this phenomenon where the human brain will actually replace something that it sees in the world with what it expects or wants. So a very, very clear experiment. Is there a ghost in my room? Why do you say that? Ooh. That fucks me up. Bud. There's this experiment, okay? There's this experiment where they show an image of a stoplight. So red, yellow, green, right? So red, yellow, green. And there's like a little tiny bug right here, bud. It's like a little tiny bug. Sorry. It's like one of those like fruit flies, and he's just crawling around. I didn't think you could see him. That's hilarious. Anyway, red, yellow, green, right? Stoplight. And so the person will show a red, yellow, green stoplight. And then they'll put like a sheen over the picture, and they'll ask the audience, who sees a red light? And everybody will be like, oh yeah, I see a red light, right? And they'll see that the light is red. And then the experimenter goes, okay, the light is not red. The light is gray, right? And everybody goes, nope, that light is red. They see red. And then what the person will do is they will surround the red light with gray, eliminating the picture, but leaving the light intact. And once the picture is surrounded by gray, the light becomes gray because it's been decontextualized. So your brain literally replaces the gray of the light, which it actually is, with red, because that's what it expects or wants. I think that this is a phenomenon that exists in the human psyche that must be confronted in a very serious and significant way. The human brain replaces reality with what it expects or wants to see. And it does this just naturally. It's not something that you've got to work for. It's not something you've got to work on. It's none of that kind of stuff. And even when you're aware of the phenomenon, it still happens, right? That even if you think to yourself, that light is red, or that light is gray, rather, that light is gray, when the experimenter takes away all the gray and shows you the stoplight again in its grayscale, your brain still replaces it with red. This is a major, 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 major issue in my perspective and in my view. This is literally the human brain lying to you because of what it expects or wants, instead of what is actual and what is real. Explains where the mega cult's coming from, right? Explains where the mega cult's coming from. Because we replace what is real with what we want or expect, right? It explains the Uyghur genocide lie and why it's been so effective, right? Because if you have a populace of xenophobes and you tell them an enormous lie that fits in with their xenophobia, it's very difficult to break that down, right? It's very difficult to break down what people want or expect, even if you show them reality. So, like, what do we do about that? You know? What do we fucking do about that? Can anything be done about that? Is it possible to do anything about that? Or are we just a species that's destined to continuously be confronted with the harshness of reality that we deny exists because we don't want it to or expect it to? I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what to do about it. They were seeing red. Yeah. Oh, hey, Amanda, how you doing? Yeah, I love this, man. Del Duca, he's desperate right from the Ontario Liberal leader vows electoral reform during the first term or he will quit. Shut the fuck up, Del Duca. First of all, he's not going to quit. If you believe that, this is the most egregious lie. Unbelievable lie. He's not going to quit. He's and vowing electoral reform. Oh, a liberal who's in a third place position vowing electoral reform as a first-time runner of the leader of the party. Does that sound familiar at all? Oh, it's literally exactly the thing that Justin Trudeau did. Literally exactly the same grift that Justin Trudeau ran. He vowed electoral reform, got into power, said, oops, haha, that's not going to happen. Wah, 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 wah. So Del Duca's, I actually think the reason why Del Duca's moved on to the basic income thing, is because people have called him out on this. It's so obviously a lie. It's so blatant, so right in your face. He can't run on this. He can't run on this. And literally turning around and saying, or he will quit. Okay. So we trust you enough to believe that you will enact electoral reform, but you're putting in a caveat saying, oh, if I don't actually do that thing you trust me enough to do, then I definitely will quit. What? No, if he's willing to break this, he's willing to break that. I want to meet the people who are getting suckered by this. I want to meet these people who are walking around being like, oh yeah, this is a legitimate thing that Del Duca's legitimately actually going to do for sure. Brilliant. Our culture can't approach our shared humanity with love, so it's just fuel for exploiters. That's why people find that kind of info scary. More love is better, yeah. I'm fighting you corrupt people, and if you don't stop, I'll quit fighting you. Brilliant. People want to believe that they have far more control than they actually do. This is something that I think we really do got to talk about in this society, right? Because there's this idea of individualism and the idea of free will and the idea of all that kind of stuff. And that's all nice in a theoretical sense. But all it's really done is it's created a bunch of delusional people who think they have far more control than they actually do. Like the anti-masker types. These guys think they have control of the situation and that they don't need to wear a mask, right? Because the universe isn't going to come along and own me, even though there's plenty of evidence to show to the contrary, right? That my will is the will and it's the most important thing, and I have free will, so I choose to not be infected by COVID. Oh yeah, okay, bud. We'll see how that works out, right? And we have several times. And the reality is that human beings have way less control of things than they like to think. I always love to say to these guys, hey, when you have to go pee, right? Do you just say no? When you have to go pee, do you just say no? Right? Oh, so but you decide, right? So you decide when you have to go pee, right? Right? That's a decision that you make for yourself. I pee at 11 a.m. every morning because I decide that that's the case. No. You use the bathroom when you gotta use it, and to the point where there's a colloquial slogan. When you gotta go. Right? And that's a rudimentary, almost childish example of how we don't have control of any of this. We barely have control of our own bodies, right? What are you talking about? You have control of what's going on in the society or any of that kind of stuff. No. And just like you respect the fact that when you gotta go, you should probably respect the fact that you live in a system that was here before you were by a lot. By a lot. That this Western civilization, such that it's called, the white supremacist culture that we live in, is so convinced of its own supremacy, like American Manifest Destiny and all this crazy shit. It's so convinced of its own supremacy that it refuses to believe that the earth might be stronger than it, right? That the earth will look at these white supremacists and these Western civilization guys and say, yeah, that's cute, and just wipe them the fuck out. And after they're wiped out, it'll set about doing what it's always done, which is turning this place into a beautiful garden, or an ice shell, or a desert planet for a couple million years, and then it'll turn it around and then do what it wants. Because guess what? We're not in control. We're not in control of what the earth does, right? The best that we can do is convince it to kill us. That's the best that we can do. And it probably doesn't want to. Like, I don't know. Like, I would be disinterested in doing it. But if it comes down to it, and when it happens, these like deluded white supremacists, like Western civilization, like fucking myopic chauvinists, like they're gonna cry about it because they're babies. I know my craving for control goes back to helpless trauma as a child. It's coping from a child's mind. Yeah. Like that is actually the truth, right? Like that if you have control of something, right? Then you're like real. I've got power, right? And that's what really matters, is this fleeting momentary delusion of control. We don't have any fucking control. Like, it's like whenever I get into this conversation of free will, right? I've started saying to the people who are actually arguing in favor of free will, I say, okay, like we have free will. Let me I'll completely just capitulate the point. We have free will. So, like, you telling me that you have free will is like a tiny grain of sand on the ocean floor saying that it has free will. And as the ocean moves, it buffets the grain of sand around, and then eventually it washes the grain of sand up on a beach. And as the sun basks down upon the grain of sand might say, aha, I am here basking in the glorious sun because of my free will. Without realizing at all that it had nothing to do with this. Nothing to do at all. It's just a comfortable lie. That's all it is. It's just a comfortable lie. Like a child is going to know how to cope. I mean, if you were some super genius or something, not me though. Well, I think people do things to just cope naturally, right? Like, I don't think you need to even be intelligent at all to create coping mechanisms to deal with trauma. I think people just do it. If you have free will or don't have free will, it functionally makes no difference. So I say, go nuts, man. I know, that's why I don't really fight them that long. I don't really care that much. Because it's like, off you go. Like, whatever gets you out of bed, bud. Like, whatever makes it easier for you. Like, I don't know that it even matters one way or the other. Right? And there's been, like, big, long theological treatises on these. Right? Like, John Milton, when he wrote Paradise Lost, one of his obvious goals was to argue in favor of free will. And he uses the argument of what he calls the fortunate fall, the story of the fall from the Garden of Eden. He says that this is actually a fortunate thing because it imbues in humanity free will, which is a good thing. And because without free will, we are but animals. And I'm like, yeah, from what I've seen in this pandemic, we are but animals. Like, I don't see much, like, self-awareness going around these days. Have you seen the right wing's Let's Go Brandon meme? Uh-oh. Let's go Brandon meme. Let's see. Let's go Brandon. Let's go Brandon. Yeah, what is let's go? Let's take a look at what this even means. Distractify. Sometimes at work, mistakes happen, may slip up. Typically, this has been making us win. A small incident in an interview with a NASCAR driver has intersected with politics. According to Know Your Meme, Let's Go Brandon is from an interview with NASCAR racer Brandon Brown and NBC that took place in October. He just won in the background, and the crowd can be heard chanting, "Fuck Joe Biden." But in what might be an effort to remain professional, the interviewer said that the crowd was saying, "Let's go Brandon." So like literally spinning the narrative in real time, right? Fuck Joe Biden. Yes, the people here chanting, "Let's go Brandon." Fuck Joe Biden. Let's go Brandon. The people here in the stadium. This reporter is reporting that the people in the stadium, as you're listening to them chant, "Fuck Joe Biden," are actually saying, "Let's go Brandon." Like literally manufacturing consent on the spot right in front of you. Like that's perfect. That's like the media, what the media does and grifts you directly to your face. As you're listening to the chant, the reporter is lying directly to your face as the evidence of their lie is happening around them. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's the media. That's the media. Brandon, you also told me, as you can hear from chants from the crowd, Kelly sends before the camera pans to the audience. In the video, you can clearly see them say, "Fuck Joe Biden," although Brandon doesn't seem to be paying attention to them. As of now, neither Brandon nor Kelly, like neither of these people really, like, that's so funny, dude.
Thank you to all of our partners. Oh my God, it's just such an unbelievable moment.
Brandon, you also told me, as you can hear the chants from the crowd, "Let's go Brandon." Brandon, you told me you were going to kind of hang back those first two
straight up
and just watch.
Straight up.
What did you learn that helped you?
I love it. I got to tell you, okay, I love this meme. I love this meme, right? Like, they are obviously saying "fuck Joe Biden," which, fuck Joe Biden. Let's be very, very clear. Fuck Joe Biden. And this reporter standing around saying, "Let's go Brandon." Yeah, they're saying, "Let's go Brandon." And I love that they've seized on this. And now you're going to see a bunch of signs from now on. Because it's going to be the perfect way to say "fuck Joe Biden" in like polite company without saying it. Right? "Let's go Brandon." Right? Perfect. Perfect. And again, like, it's the media doing exactly what the media does. Lying directly to your face in spite of the evidence that's directly in front of you. Right? And these are the guys that are turning around saying, like, "Yeah, there's a genocide going on in Xinjiang. Yeah, the Chinese, they're doing a genocide. Yeah. Oh, yeah, let's go Brandon. Let's go Brandon." Same guys. Like, same fucking guys. Just finished doing an oil change on my Jeep. How are the comrades this evening? We're doing well, bud. We're doing well. Yeah, NASCAR fans hating the libs is shocker. Yeah. I just find that whole thing kind of desperate and sad. Oh, yeah, dude. It's desperate and sad. Are you kidding me? These people are fucking desperate and sad. Like, I know you're saying that as like a kind of like, sort of thing, but like, that's what these people are. They're desperate and sad. And like, look at what the threads that they're clinging to. Like, look at these like threads that they're just like trying to grab onto, and they're trying to get a message across, and they're trying to memify. And honestly, this moment in time is absolutely perfect. It's absolutely a perfect thing to seize onto, because it perfectly illustrates the corrupt nature of the media, while like literally to ignore. Like, why are they even shouting fuck Joe Biden? They're just doing it because they want to, right? And like, instead of addressing it or paying attention to it at all, She literally lies straight to their face about it, right? That's absolutely the perfect moment. And I don't think it's that they need a hero. I think that they just are going to say, let's go, Brandon, as this, like, don't forget that they're going to lie to your face. They're going to fucking lie directly to your face as the evidence of their lie is right in front of you. Like, it's an absolutely perfect media moment. And let's go, Brandon. Yeah, let's do it. New meme. Let's go. Let's go, Brandon. Like, I'm going to say let's go, Brandon, from now on. Whenever it's like an obvious media lie, I'm just going to be like, yeah, let's go, Brandon, right? Like, it's an obvious media lie. Like, it's right in front of your face. But you look at YouTube comments and you see let's go, Brandon, everywhere with hundreds of likes. Yeah. Yeah. It's the new hotness. It's the new hotness. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go. I mean, I'm sad too, but I don't need a hero. I don't know. I don't think it's heroes. Like, I think it is like, because it's so overtly a lie. Yeah. Hiding behind the QT wink wink words and phrases to hide horrible values is just so unbrand and cowardly. Yeah. There's that too, Bumbleguppy. Right? And it really flows into that sort of the Nazi thing of plausible deniability, right? You know, like, you say 88 or you say 1488, right? And if somebody gets mad at you, you're like, what? It's just coincidence. What? Right? Like, you know, it's just like wink, nudge, 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 wink, right? Like, you say HH and people, if they lose their mind, you're like, what? It's just two H's. Like, what are you talking about? Right? So you can say, like, let's go, Brandon. And it's just like, what? I just said, let's go, Brandon. Like, what? Pride flags are now being banned by schools in multiple states as some administrators claim that LGBTQ symbols can be too political or divisive. Why is my right to exist divisive? Yeah. Like, really? That's what it comes down to. And, like, divisive to who? Right? Or, like, what? Like, who's getting offended by these? Right? When you actually pick at that little scab, you find out that the people who are being offended by pride flags and the such are literally flying around like Confederate flags and Nazi flags. Like, I can't possibly imagine. Like, and guys, like, this is happening under the Biden administration right now. Just wait for the second Trump administration, man. The second Trump administration is just going to be an absolute shitstorm. When Trump when he won, I stopped kind of paying attention to politics because I knew it was just going to be ridiculous. But it looks like now I'm in the position, right? I'm in the position for the next Trump administration. And so it's going to be like, here we go. Like, yeehaw. I'm going to be riding that nuclear bomb down to the ground. Channel probably won't survive it. Honestly. Divisive to my white ethno-state. Yeah. Read somewhere that the whole TERF movement was going to result in this, that it would be used to create crushing of the whole LGBT movement. Oh, interesting. That, like, you put enough pressure on the the LGBTQ movement so that it's got to kind of push back hard enough that you can claim that it's divisive, and it's just used as a way to brush it again into silence. Yeah, interesting. That is really interesting, actually. That would be a tactic, right? It's like how the Nazis would go into communist neighborhoods and hold rallies in communist neighborhoods so that they could pick fights with communists and then claim that it was the communists who were violent. That's what that is. Like, that's a similar strategy. The foot in the door for public sentiment and throw everyone under the bus. Yeah, interesting. Interesting perspective. I genuinely do not know enough about the TERF movement. I got to be straight with you. Like, I didn't really know or understand that it was as big a movement as I think it is, or I thought it was. And, like, it does make sense, though. Like, it makes sense that there's going to be a backlash to the LGBTQ movement. That movement has been fairly successful for a good period of time, and it makes sense that there's going to be a snapback of the elastic, right? Because that's how white supremacy works, right? That any kind of freedoms that are gained and pushed and like cracks that are formed and all of this kind of stuff, well, the white culture will eventually work to push those cracks back together, right? That's what we've always done. I don't see it stopping here, right? And for us, the thing that matters the most is to keep widening the cracks and keep widening it and keep letting, like, I had a conversation today with one of my trans friends, and she's the thing that we got talking about the Chappelle thing, right? And it really like, yeah, wait a minute, like, why do we give a fuck what this guy thinks at all? Like, Dave Chappelle's a straight, like, black dude. Like, who gives a fuck what he thinks about trans people at all? He's not an authority, right? Like, and why is it that we're not truly platforming and listening to trans people about what it is to be a trans person, right? Like, that's what's odd to me. It's just their new strategic position. Guys aren't icky to the public anymore, so they had to find another group to call icky. Well, gays are, yeah, and it's, I don't know. I think they probably genuinely do think that it's icky, right? Because they don't like to think about these things. Like, if you're unwilling to, like, really contemplate your own sexuality in a serious way and what it means to be a man, I knew he was gay when he didn't drink Duff beer. Exactly. I don't know. I have a feeling we'll have Trump reelected, but things will never come to a head. We'll just limp into our futureless future. No, dude. Things are going to come to a head. That's wishful thinking. That's wishful thinking. Like, human history is littered with, like, there's going to be a conflagration. We're talking about a people that lose their minds when a black guy takes the knee. Like, we're talking about a culture that loses its mind when people ask for just, like, the most basic rights. Like for real. Yeah, when a more serious situation occurs, something's going to come to a head for sure. Like, and you're going to look at places like Portland, right, where the Proud Boys are, like, literally walking the streets of Portland openly, and the police are doing nothing to stop them. Like, that's going to be like ground zero. Like, there's going to be big events that are coming. Let's go, Brandon. Oh yeah, I'm just so tired of nothing happening. We learn the rich are hiding trillions offshore, but nothing happens. We see cops kill hundreds of people, but nothing happens. We demand health care and a living wage, but nothing happens. Then they wonder why people are angry. This sort of flows into what you were just saying there, Loaf. Like, or Onward, rather. The people are seeing that nothing is happening, right? The inaction itself is so palpable and so obvious and so directly in front of us. Like, people are genuinely being like, wait, why is nothing happening? And you're even seeing it with, like, the Americans passing this infrastructure bill, right? Nothing's happening with that. That's not going to happen. Meanwhile, they sign off on giving the U.S. military another, $20 billion or whatever, and that takes a day. They literally just, like, sign the bill that they're given by the military-industrial complex. It's comforting to think everything will go up in a spiral of rocket smoke and explode, ringing through the overtones of existence. But we're just gonna keep eating cheeseburgers. Well, that's true, dude. You can't tell people not to eat cheeseburgers. Like, the only way we will ever stop eating cheeseburgers is if cheeseburgers cease to exist as something to eat. No, we're always going to eat cheeseburgers. Like, that's never going to stop. Yeah, get out of here, Pope. Oh yeah, here's one from Wired, so take it with the grain of salt that it's due. They quit. Now they want their jobs back. When the Great Resignation is over, experts believe that the recruitment market will be overrun by boomerang employees. First comment, yes, the experts. Like, these are the stupid narratives that they're telling themselves in the populace. Yeah, I plan to eat cheeseburgers as the nukes are falling. Might as well, dude. Might as well. Although it does look like, spot of good news. It does look like the Biden administration is stepping down from the high-scale war rhetoric required to take a nation to war. It looks like they're stepping down from the Uyghur genocide narrative. They're pivoting to the Taiwan narrative, which has its own failings. And it seems as though the idea that they can just go to war with China and have it not go nuclear, that's the gamble that I think the Biden administration is simply not willing to take. That a lot of their assumptions rest on the idea that China is evil enough to go to war against, but not evil enough to use nuclear bombs. Like, that is what they're saying, and it's incoherent, right? It's completely incoherent. And honestly, like, would you be willing to risk your entire civilization to knock out like 30% of China's economy? It's an enormous gamble. And so it looks to me like the Americans are backing off, that they but that's just temporary, right? Yeah, the Americans economically blockade the South China Sea. We will lose this war, and they will pollute China with McDonald's and fat people. Yeah. Yeah, boomerang. Exactly, bud. Well, and like, you guys know me, right? You guys know me. You know where I'm going. A blockade of the South China Sea is not going to be as devastating as people think it is. Like, America has such a stupid way of looking at itself, and it like literally thinks it's like king shit of you know of Turd Island here, right? Like, it literally thinks like, yeah, I own this place. This is my property. I own this. That's literally how they think. That when China actually built nuclear bombs and asserted its own independence on the world stage, Americans say, oh, we lament the loss of China because we owned that. China was our property. It was always ours, right? When they go into the Middle East, they do so because they're like, we own this place. Who cares? When they go fuck up Africa and South America, it's because they own this place, right? These guys are ours. We own them. And China, because of its building of the Belt and Road Initiative, is doing everything it can to ensure that should there be trade disruptions, like, well, who's that actually going to hurt? Like, really? Like, if the Belt and Road Initiative is all over the continent, right? If it's all over the place and they can get goods into Europe, right? Well, who does a blockade actually hurt? Australia, right? I mean, South America, obviously. But mainly it would be the United States. Like, all our shit is made in China. Hey, Alex, how you doing, bud? American geopolitical goals in Asia has shifted dramatically since Obama's Asia pivot policy from the Middle East. A new order was taking place. Biden is the continuation of the Asia pivot. I mean, I just don't know what the Americans are going to be able to do, right? Like, that's really what it's coming down to, is like, they can't actually start a massive military conflict without risking escalation to nuclear war, right? They're way behind in cybersecurity and like cyber sort of stuff. They're way, way behind. In terms of trade relations, if they do disrupt the South China Sea, it's cutting off their own nose to spite their face. China has enormous trade connection. Even if they manage to be successful, China has major trade networks built all across the world stage that they're continuing to expand. Like, China has 1.6 billion people. America has 300 million. Like, it's this. in my view, this war is already over, right? Like, if the Americans want to escalate it to something more serious, like, they are risking the survival of the species itself. And for what? To gain what? For what purpose? A U.S. submarine recently hit something in the South China Sea. Yeah, AUKUS PAC, troops in Taiwan, military bases in Taiwan and Okinawa. Yep. All of that is true. With the withdrawal from Afghanistan, China can build roads through the Middle East, which they're doing. They're already building that. Like, that infrastructure is being built. And I actually think that's a big, big reason why the United States is stepping off from the Uyghur genocide narrative, because that road is being built from here, the Kashgar prefecture, into Kabul, right? And you're also starting to see, like, tourists are going in to Xinjiang and seeing the place, and they're just like, what the fuck? Like, what? There's what? Whoa. This isn't a fucking concentration camp, dude. Like, containment is the American goal. Then it's already over. Like, containment. Like, here's the thing: if America keeps containing the rest of the world, right? And if China builds rail throughout this entire thing, well, who's contained? Like, who's contained? Is China contained if it's got rail all over the place, right? And the United States has what? Who's contained? Like, this has been what I've been saying about America this whole time, right? That their strategy is going to lead to enormous isolationism. No one is going to want to do business with or deal with America because it's a psychopathic, unstable madman, right? Literally going around the world, blowing places up, enslaving populations, sanctioning people into crippling poverty, absolutely destroying everything around. And, like, if I'm any of these European nations, I'm thinking to myself, well, China's looking pretty stable. Like, what's the U.S. bringing to the table exactly? Like, really? Like, what is it that the United States is bringing to the table? Like, let's be straight. Like, anybody? What's the U.S. got? China has 1.6 million people. Like, even if each of those people are slightly poorer than the average American, there's 1.6 billion of them. Like, this is getting to be an easier and easier computation as time goes forward. And if the United States, which just recently withdrew in failure from a 20-year catastrophe, right, which as time goes forward is going to be seen as more and more catastrophic, because the Chinese are just marching in there. They're building the rail to Kabul, and then they're going to build the rail from Kabul to Tehran. That's going to go to Ankara and Istanbul, and then up into Bucharest and up through here, right? Like, they're building a rail through to get into Europe through the south, and they've already got rail in through Belarus, right? Like, the only thing that the Americans have in order to kind of leverage the position on the world stage is the fact that they have Israel, right? And if they can expand the border of Israel to take over this little tiny parcel of land right here, if Israel has control of all of this, that means that they won't be able to get a rail through here, which means they won't be able to get a rail into Africa without having some kind of sea lane, which is what they're doing now, right? That the sea lanes go in here, right? And then they got rail out from here. So they're building the rail off the coasts, but they need a boat to get there in the first place. But if they can somehow, so here's like an example. Let's say they get a rail, well, not into Iraq, obviously, but let's say they get it down Syria into Jordan, right? Let's say they go Syria, Jordan, right? And then they get it down here, and then they build a bridge, right? Down here, build a bridge, right? And they just go whoop right in. Like, if they can get a rail into Africa, who gives a fuck what the Americans think? Right? Who gives a fuck? Good night, Onward. Good to see you, bud. Yeah, you can't contain China for one simple reason. The U.S. no longer has that great soft power and hard power it once enjoyed. China is relatable to the developing world. America has lost its role. Yeah. Well, America only had power because every other capitalist nation blew itself up. Like, that's it. The only reason America had power, period, at all, is because everyone else blew themselves up. Right? Post-World War II, Europe was decimated, Russia was decimated, China was not in any position, right? So America didn't really have any peer competitors because everybody just blew themselves up. So now everybody is sort of rebuilt back up so that things are kind of normalized, right, in terms of infrastructure and all this kind of stuff. The only leverage that the United States has had over the past 40 years has been its financial machinations, right? The U.S. banking system, the tying of the dollar to the price of oil, these sorts of things. So it's just been like financially dominating the world. But now that's stopping because people are like, fuck you. Very straightforwardly. Just like, fuck you. You're fucking crazy. Get the fuck out of here. And meanwhile, like, other places are just building. And now they're superseding the United States. Because the United States, instead of taking its position of power and building on it, they just squandered it, right? They turned all of their energy into just bombs and just to destroy other places, to assert their dominance and to make money dollars, right? For this like illusionary financial market system that doesn't actually manifest into anything important whatsoever. And like meanwhile, a place like China and Russia are building things. They're legitimately building stuff. And stuff that's going to be around for generations to come. Where this fake illusionary financial bullshit that the United States is doing is going to be gone in one generation. It's just going to be gone. Because none of that matters, right? It's just it was fake in the first place. And like, so the United States is falling behind and falling behind and falling behind, and there is no indication that they're going to change course. Like, there is no indication that they are, like, at this point, it seems to me that the power structure in Canada and the United States is more concerned with how to deal with the dissent than it is in resolving this issue or improving things. Like, that's how the structure is asserting itself. Yeah, the point of the Belt and Road Initiative is to make containment impossible, of course. Well, because again, like, China's, like, United States is playing checkers, China's playing Go, right? They both use little tokens, but boy howdy are they a different game. America's been in decline for a long time, and COVID was the final nail. They have nothing aside from military power that the rest of the world resents. Exactly. Well, and they use like the Nazis, like what they have done in the Middle East is as bad as Adolf Hitler. Period. Like there is no defense for this nation anymore. People like George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, fucking even like Ronald Reagan, right? These guys are fucking sociopathic war criminals that murdered millions of people, like overtly and obviously. Right? Same with Obama, same with Donald Trump. Like, these guys are nightmare creatures who are going into regions that they believe they own because they're white, and because of the system of white supremacy. And they're just bombing the shit out of it and stealing their resources. And then saying, like, yeah, we're the most efficient system. Look how wealthy we are. Look at all the wealth we generated and created for ourselves. Right? There's a number of paths, and that would be a declaration of World War III, especially since this is a major infrastructure in a number of countries. You know what I find really funny about, like, the idea that World War III is yet to come? Like, the invasion of Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Oman, Yemen, right? Like, that's like 7 nations have been invaded in this, right? Not considered a world war at all. The Americans have gone to war. It's created refugee crises throughout the United States. It's created refugee crises in China, right? It's been very clearly a world level conflict. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. The U.S. used to have a strong consumer base that had money because they had jobs to produce things. But that was converted to profits, so I don't know. Yeah. The Saudis are already building a bridge as part of NEOM. Oh, okay. Hold on. That's interesting. Saudi Arabian bridge. NEOM? NEOM is a planned cross-border city. Oh yeah, I've heard about this. Yeah. NEOM. So you're thinking the project unveiled plans for a line, linear city, conventional cars, airport. I'd really, because if they're okay, yeah, you're right. So they're already putting like NEOM. Where exactly was that? Let's make this nice and big for us. Oh come on. You had the little dot there. Why did you move the dot? Dot. Okay. In either case, so they're putting a city, which isn't even yet here. So they're gonna put a city over here on the Gulf here, in order to allow them to put a bridge there. And that would be enough, actually, because then, you got to remember, Saudi Arabia, even though they are an ally of the United States, they're playing their own game, right? And if push comes to shove, when push comes to shove, Saudi Arabia is going to negotiate with China in order to get the Belt and Road Initiative in their own country. For sure they are, right? And it doesn't matter if Iran and Afghanistan, these places fucking hate Saudi Arabia. None of that matters. Are these guys actually going to risk war and risk their relationship with China in order to deny Saudi Arabia access to the Belt and Road Initiative? Don't think so. And so if they can get into Tehran, and then should this Iraqi conversation actually befall, because they can't actually get through here, right? They can't actually get through here. But this is going to resolve itself eventually, right? I'm of the opinion that the plan is for Israel to expand its borders and take over some of this territory, right? But the reality, I think, for the Americans is that they're not going to have the power to be able to do that, right? That any idea that they had for a greater Israel project, it's not going to happen. They're not going to have the military and economic supremacy in order to do this. So they're going to pull out of Iraq just like they pulled out of Afghanistan. And just like what happened in Afghanistan, Belt and Road Initiative, Tehran, Baghdad, and then it's going to be Baghdad right down here. And if there's a city here with a bridge, click. That takes you into Egypt. And once you're into Egypt, you're into the rest of Africa. Yeah, I think you're right, dude. Nome. Got to remember that they are building a city right here. And the only reason they would do that is to get a bridge there to sidestep Israel, to ultimately facilitate China putting the Belt and Road Initiative through here. China's taking this shit over, guys. It's written in the stars. America has bungled this shit so fucking badly. It's bungled this shit so fucking badly that China is going to be an economic powerhouse. It's going to be the engine driving the rest of the world to a more prosperous future under a socialist, dare I say, communist government, while the United States sits there with its 5 oligarchs and their thumbs up their butt as it collapses into civil war and revolution. Yeah, I mean, and it seems why else? I was thinking about this the other, not that when I first heard about it, and then of course I forgot about it. Why would they put a city here? It seems like not a good idea, unless the goal is to actually get a bridge, and then use that bridge to facilitate the Belt and Road Initiative, right? And then get that bridge connected to the Suez, so it can be part of the Suez Canal, right? Into Cairo, and off to the races you go. I think it's a great idea. And also a really excellent way for Saudi Arabia to pivot out of this period of time while avoiding a war for itself. Right? Like, think about that. Like, I think about Saudi Arabia all the time in that context. Like, as the United States starts to pull out and as it loses power in this region, right? What's Saudi Arabia going to do? They have been tight allies with the Americans this whole time. But eventually there comes a point where they've got to fight on, like, they've got to be on their own 2 feet. And so it looks to me like they're going, okay, well, we know who the new power is, right? And so they're going to work with China, going to get connected in. Cool, man. Cool to see. A giant Chinese bridge would be cool. Wouldn't it ever? Wouldn't it ever? Well, and also Saudi Arabia doesn't want to miss out on this. Like, are you kidding me? The Belt and Road Initiative? What a sweetheart of a deal. Like, oh, you're telling me there's high-speed rail that exists throughout China, into Russia, throughout all of Europe, right? And to be a part of this, I just have to let China build a rail to my city. Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. Yep. Like, who would be against this? Like, that's the thing I keep saying. Like, who would possibly be against this? The only type of person who would be against this would be like the deepest racist xenophobe you'd ever find. If you were a conservative, based on fiscal terms alone, you're in. If you're a liberal, you believe in internationalism, you're in. If you're a socialist, you believe in egalitarian spreading and the sharing of resources throughout the world, you're in. If you're a fucking communist, you're in, right? Like, the only people who would be against something like this would be the fascists, because they're against everything. Colin Powell expired from COVID. I started my day. Yeah. Farewell, Colin Powell. You probably won't burn in hell, but you'll definitely be in hell, right? I think we can all agree with that Colin Powell is, like, not going to be in the same hell that, like, George W. Bush is going to, but he still is in hell, right? He'll be like an administrator. He'll have an administrative position in hell. Take a look at Iraq under the U.S.-sponsored UN Operation Oil for Food program. Over 1 million Iraqis died of starvation, and many more unaccounted for died at birth due to lack of basic medicines. Exactly. Yeah, of course Israel's not happy about NEOM. Yeah, according to international law, Israel has to agree, primarily because it affects its access to the Red Sea. Yeah, hint, hint, Abraham Accord. Yeah. Honestly, dude, I think that Saudi Arabia is going to do it anyway. Since when has Saudi Arabia really cared about international law, right? Like, I genuinely think that Saudi Arabia is just going to go ahead with it, and Israel can get fucked. Like, Saudi Arabia cares about what the United States thinks. That's it. And, like, at the end of the day, like, what are they going to do about it? Right? What are they going to do about it? They're gonna bomb Saudi Arabia? Probably not. All but 6 countries were involved in World War II. Neutral countries like Ireland sent weather forecasts to the British for the D-Day invasion. Yeah, that's fair to say, Mock. By the way, Israel is now... Yeah. Infrastructure unites us all. Exactly. Dennis Prager has COVID too. Yeah, good. Fantastic. With any luck, he'll be hanging out with Colin Powell soon. Yeah, dude. Like, Dennis Prager is one of the worst, like, propagandists that America has seen. Like, the idea that there's a Prager University, like, just, it's in the fucking name. It's not a university, and he calls himself a university. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. Like, how dare you? Like, how dare you say that you have a university? And that alone, by the way, like, the fact that he calls it Prager University, right, and attempts to grift everybody with this idea that he's got a university going on, when it's not a university at all, right? Like, that alone is enough to be like, oh, this guy's a fraud. Like, you don't need to know anything else. And then you start digging a little bit deeper into PragerU, and you start to realize, like, oh shit, this is like fascist Nazi level propaganda. Like, holy shit. And if anybody comes in here with, like, this PragerU shit, it's so cringy, it's so fucking embarrassing. And what's crazy about PragerU is that they've gotten so, like, detached from what they're actually doing, that sometimes they accidentally stumble into like actual territory. That makes sense. Like they're so focused on what they're on owning the libs that they literally end up like saying some communist shit sometimes, and you're just like, oh, baller. Hey, Steam Train, I don't think I've ever seen you here before, bud. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah. Man, I'm getting hungry. I'm getting hungry. Hungry like a hippo. Oh man, I have gone through all of my sources. I've got nothing left to finish off the last 10 minutes. You know what I'm going to do then? I didn't play the song. So I'm going to spend these last 10 minutes. We'll close it out with the song. You guys know the one, right? I'm looking forward to getting this one recorded, man. Prager urine, fantastic. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm grown? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Get the fuck out of here, bud. Real straightforward shit. I don't need to see that. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point of feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes and sweeps me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, so everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice. Everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And Antarctica is covered in ice, and and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? What are we talking about? We're solving the world's problems, bud. We're solving the world's problems. One step at a time. No, I think the thing we were just talking about is the interesting fact that it looks like Saudi Arabia is building a bridge into Africa so that China can get its Belt and Road Initiative. And Colin Powell, yeah, I know the Keck came in and it set off my trolley senses too, but I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? But as soon as he starts like, black people are, I'm just like, yeah, okay, we're not going to wait for you to finish this sentence. Yeah, Colin Powell, he's, as I said before, right? He's not going to the worst level of hell, but he's still going to hell, for sure. I don't, wouldn't that be wild if afterwards there was like an afterlife thing and Colin Powell's like, yeah, I made a mistake, but here I am in heaven anyway, you know? It's like, oh, okay. Turns out Colin Powell actually did like a whole bunch of nice stuff. Just made like one big mistake. Yeah, he's spending time with Saddam looking for those WMD trains, yeah? Thanks, Major. I appreciate that, bud. And soon that song is going to be recorded. I'm recording it tomorrow. I hope. Yeah, look at this Anthrax. To be fair to Colin Powell, and you know me, I try to see all sides of a thing. Like, I do think that he was tricked along with the rest of us. I think that he was resistant. Every single person who has been involved in this said of Colin Powell that he was very resistant to the idea of a war with Iraq, that he really needed, like, I am more or less of the opinion that the reason why the Bush administration created a casus belli at all, the reason why they told the lie at all, I think was because of Colin Powell. That if it wasn't for him, if Colin Powell was also being like, yeah, let's go to war with Iraq, they just would have gone in. Like, why tell a lie? Why lie? Why even bother? Right? Exactly. Unlike Rumsfeld. Like, Rumsfeld wanted to go in. And if Rumsfeld had been in Colin Powell's position, he wouldn't have bothered. Why bother with a lie? Right? And so the reality of the situation is that they had to tell a lie to Powell. And so this is why it's a little bit easier to come down on the side of forgiveness for a man like Colin Powell, because according to literally every source, he was resistant to the idea. He didn't want to go in. He fought back against the administration until they convinced him that there were weapons factories, that there was the threat of the WMD. And they convinced him of this lie, like they convinced the rest of us of this lie. It just turns out that the consequences of believing that lie put him in the position of being the unfortunate victim right at the front of it. Right? And even as I'm talking about it now, I'm easing off on Powell a little bit, because like he got grifted, eh? Like, he got conned like the rest of us. And it's just deeply unfortunate that he was, you know, a man who had a deal of power, right? That he is responsible ultimately. Yeah, he was the first one to admit idiocy in front of Congress. Yeah. But and this just goes to show you how powerful the American propaganda system actually is. That people who are on the inside of the military-industrial complex, even the people who are resistant, right, to the idea of going to war, can be convinced. Right? That's how dangerous the American propaganda system is. On a scale of 1 to 7, what floor of hell do you think he'll be on? You know what, man? I'm going to relinquish this to the higher authority. I don't think I'll make a call on it. Rumsfeld claims his statements on Iraq were misstatements. Another word for lies. Yeah. Rumsfeld is for sure burning in hell, dude. Like, if a place like hell exists, if a place like hell exists at all, and Rumsfeld is not in it, then I am curious to know why hell exists at all. Like, what's the point of having this place if men like Rumsfeld don't go there? Like, yeah, like Cheney too. Like, fuck, that whole fucking administration, honestly. Like, those guys were total goddamn dirtbags. Total fucking goddamn dirtbags. Well, speaking of the existential nature of our existence, guys, each and every one of you is actually a quantum being, right? We are essentially beams of light arguing with one another. They got to find all of Cheney's Horcruxes is what it really is, right? That's what it is. They got to find the Horcruxes and break them all at once, and then you can kill Dick Cheney. And because we are quantum beings, that gives each and every one of us a great deal of equality with one another. That not only are we equal because of the leveling thresher of death, but also simply because we are light beings that have manifested on a rock hurling around a burning star. We should be really, really nice to one another. And these billionaires are gaslighting us with enormous propaganda machines that are so effective that they can convince people like Colin Powell to go murder 1 million Iraqis over a little thing of fucking dish soap or whatever the fuck it was. Right? And we shouldn't let them. 3 body problems, yo. Chicken Lou for you sci fans. All right, cool. All right, guys. I gotta go eat. Good luck. We're gonna need it.